Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January meeting of Parks and Rec and Waterfront and Resiliency and all those fun things. My name is Michael Marino. I'm the Zoom facilitator for the meeting. Trevor Holland is the chair who will be running the meeting. Just some ground rules as we're getting started. For attendance purposes, if you are a member of the public or an agency here to present, if you can put your name and your affiliation in the chat box. Again, this is for attendance purposes only, your name and affiliation if you have one in the chat box. A reminder, as always, this committee only uses the chat box for attendance and for any technical issues. So chats only come to myself and to Trevor as the host of the meeting. We are going to have a couple of presentations tonight, and the way that usually works is the chair will have the agency do the presentation. Then he will take comments and questions from community board members first, and then he will open it up to the public. For the public, you will be timed to 2 minutes for any questions and comments that you have. And we will put a timer up. It's a little obnoxious, so I apologize in advance, but we use it to keep everybody to time, so we're not here till midnight. Some Zoom processes to remind you of. If you are on the phone, it is *6 to mute and unmute yourself, and *9 to raise your hand. If you are on the computer, if you go into the participants tab, you will find the raise hand function there. We will be using the raise hand function for the question and answer session. So we ask that you use the raise hand function. If you have difficulty finding where it is, just send me a message in the chat and we'll try to help you as best I can. Lastly, the meeting is recorded for open meeting law rules. And we ask that everyone stay muted until you are asked to speak. And Carlin, I see you have a hand up already. Do you have a question about something?
Yeah, I need to sign off here. I'm going to be signing back out from my laptop, okay?
Okay. So I will hand it over to Trevor. The agenda for the meeting is on the screen. I believe Trevor is going to reorder some items before we get started.
Well, welcome everyone to our January meeting. And we welcome the new year. I know it's been a strange 2 weeks, so we'll just say welcome to 2021. The agenda is up, and as Michael mentioned, we're going to shift a few things around. I believe we're going to try and do numbers 7, 8, and 2 together. So they will come first unless one of the presenters is not here. So those will group together, and then the rest of the schedule will follow as you see on the agenda. First off, for committee members, we're going to take attendance. But before we take attendance, we're going to approve the minutes. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? All right, so next we'll take attendance. And we have, graciously, we have the help of Brian, who is our secretary, who's going to take minutes, and she has been taking minutes for quite some time. So you can thank her for the thoroughness of the minutes. Well, let's take attendance.
Trevor Holland.
Here or yes. I don't know what we're supposed to say.
Present.
Present. There we go. That works.
Kay Webster.
Present.
David Adams.
Yes, and present.
Yaron Altman.
Present.
Carlin Chan.
Present.
I have to think you have to say yes for the minutes. We can't just say present for the minutes.
I think we just did minutes approval.
This roll call does it at the same time.
We're changing up a bit, but if you want to say yes to the minutes, you can also.
I think David Crane pointed it out to me once. That just saying here, when you go still voting for something on the sheet, you have to say, you have to say what you voted.
We no longer vote on the minutes. It's either an approval or you have an objection to it.
Feel free to say yes.
Okay.
You can say yes, present, here. We need to get through this meeting, so Ryan, whatever works for the attendance sheet works.
I just don't want David to come back at us, that's all.
I'll take the heat for that.
Carlin,
Yes,
Chan,
I'm here.
Ryan
Ready?
Gillum here, Valentina Jones,
Present.
Michael Marino,
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe, Robin Chattel, Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, you might need to update your list since Carolyn resigned from the board.
Yeah, just a note to the committee members, Caroline resigned from the board, so she's no longer on this committee. We're gonna move along to the Parks Manager update.
Happy New Year, everybody. The report's very basic. Sour Playground recently opened up. So just to notify the public, it's actually there's a new playground, an open run area for kids. It recently opened up 2 weeks ago. Also, with the 5th Precinct and 9th Precinct, we're working with them to address hotspots in the district. The 2 areas that we were targeting is Tompkins and Sarah D. We're trying to address the homeless issue, also drugs and other issues we have going on in the park, like drinking. So at Tompkins, PEP and PD and M&O are doing a joint effort once a month, and we're trying to target all the infractions that are being done in the park. At Sarah D, we're doing it every Saturday. So typically every Saturday, PEP, PD, and M&O, they go from Houston to Canal, addressing all the homeless, drugs, and other issues we have going on in the park. We're still dealing with a lot of shortage issues with staffing, which is also affecting the operation. But we'll rather than having staff fixed posts, we're having more staff on mobile to make sure properties get clean at a regular basis. And that's it right now for me.
Thank you. I'm going to go to committee members with any questions, and I'm going to ask that we keep this brief. And if you have any extensive questions, that we do it offline. So I'll go to committee members only quickly.
Hey, Webster.
Hi, Jamel.
Hey, Kate, how you doing?
I'm okay. Is there any movement on those needle boxes that the community
I saw
board
Steve today. I brought it up again. They're still weighing on the decision of yes or no. I'll bring it after this. I have to send another email up. I'll include this in part of the email that you guys are inquiring about the needle boxes.
Yeah, thanks. They're really doing the dig along the side, and those workers really have found needles there, and they don't know how to dispose of them, so they're burying them. And I don't think that's a good way to go.
No, not. What I'll do also, Kate, tomorrow, I'll go over there and I'll speak to them. I'll give them our contact information. So if they do find some, often they can reach out to us. We'll send a staff person over who's trained on how to pick up needles, and we'll dispose of them.
That is a very lovely offer, but I guarantee you they won't do it. They're working. They're not going to do anything like that. So please, I think the only way forward, because it's a larger issue along the park, I have been asked by some of the homeless, honestly, could you just put something up there so that I can dispose of mine? And not everybody does, but some people would. And it's just an extra public health precaution. So I thank you, and tell Steve I'll call him personally.
Okay,
Thanks.
Will do.
Thanks, Jim.
Valentina Jones.
Yeah, just you said that they're addressing the drug problem. I just wanted to know how they're doing it.
Well, it's giving out tickets. We had for a while quite a bit of homeless encampments also with a lot of drug use. Maybe like 3 weeks ago, along Sarah D, along I think the Forsyth side, they built an actual tent almost. And when they removed it, they found a lot of needles. They found 2 stolen motorcycles. One of them was, I think, priced over $40,000. Beer kegs. There was a lot of random stuff found in there, but there's also needles. So we're trying our best to address the problem. But the problem is once we move them, they move to another park within the district. Typically, when they leave Sarah D, they go to First Park. From First Park, they'll usually be at either the Houston Green Streets, which are very problematic. This last week, we sent our 2 gardeners and an M&O staff to really clean out the hoard areas, and they pulled like in a 4-block radius from FDR to by Baruch over 30 bags of garbage. And a lot of it was, unfortunately, they found drug paraphernalia, bags of urine, things like that nature.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute,
Val-
are they
Yeah.
offered drug treatment? I mean, all those needles.
That's usually, I know usually what they usually try to do is they get homeless services involved and try to get homeless services to offer them options.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I'm like, all those needles, I think it's kind of clear they're doing heroin. Okay. All right.
No, I agree with you totally. It's really weird. We found an influx of needles also randomly on East River Park along that right across the bridge from Houston, which has been odd. So, which is something that we've been monitoring a lot lately.
Can I just follow up, Jamil? This is Kay. And again, thank you. And I wish I'd known about that. That was a $40,000 motorcycle.
Ducati.
Wow. You know, with the behind the Stanton building being fenced off, which now is lovely looking, but that's where they used to go, but nobody else can use it either. So I know this is a short-term solution because there's no staff, but at some point it's not serving anybody, and it's just weird. And it's not you. I think you've done an amazing job, as has the staff, given everything. But a long-term solution, really, Steve and the commissioner really do have to come up with something. So, thank you.
So, Kay, what we've been doing the last 2 weeks, we've been gradually opening up the playground from 10 to 2. It's kind of difficult because, my attendance is still spotty. I average about 10 to 12 call-outs a day. So typically when I have someone in, we put them over there. We open up the bathrooms from that 4-hour period. We open up the playground. They still come. I'm having more of an issue now with adults at Rivington, and that's a kids' park. So we're trying to get PEP and PD to enforce that, which is very, very problematic because a lot of adults go in there and they do drugs. So it's something that we're trying to address and really get it back for the kids to enjoy the playground.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jamil.
All right, thanks, Jamil. We're going to move on because we've got quite a few things on the agenda. The next 2 are the review of parks closure hours and the Adoptive bench program. Jamil, I know you had mentioned that are you doing the presentation on the parks closure hours?
I'm doing the presentation. Yeah, okay. So the way it works now is basically District 3 is responsible for locking up the whole borough of Manhattan. So from 6 o'clock, my staff goes out to 8:30. They lock up everything in District 3, except for I think, Trevor, I emailed you the locations that we're keeping open. Mm-hmm. And to the group, I can give you guys a name. It's Cherry Clinton, Captain Jacob Joseph, Henry Jackson, First Park, Cooper Square, James Madison, East River Park Fields, 1 through 4, and Sophie Loeb. Speaking to Steve today, one of the things we did come up with, if anyone has issues with some of these parks being left open, you could please email me. I could bring it to Steve. It could also be reviewed later on by a commissioner.
I'm just going to stop
all
you.
the parks get.
Jamil, I'm just because I need to. I did get an email, but we do have a secretary who needs to take notes on this. So I want to slow that down a bit. So the first one was. Yeah, it's fine.
The first one was Cherry Clinton.
Just give her a second to write each one in. Go ahead.
Captain Jacob Joseph.
And I'm probably the only one here who knows where that park is.
Henry Jackson. First Park. Cooper Square. James Madison Plaza. East River Park Fields 1 through 4. And Sophie Loeb.
And those are open 24 hours. They're not closed at all.
Correct.
Jose, I see your hand. I'm going to let him finish first, and then we'll go to questions. The rest are back to regular closure hours, including Seward Park?
Correct, yes. So we try, I have to be very honest with this. Due to the fact that we're locking up the whole borough of Manhattan, we have to be done by 12 because mass transit ends at 12, so my staff could get home. We leave at 6. Usually we get done with District 3 about 8:30, and they move on to either the west or the east to lock up playgrounds.
So you're responsible.
Staff now,
You're
I'm
responsible
sorry.
for all of Manhattan?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So with that, I know in the past there's been issues with people being locked in parks. Now we've got them LED lights, megaphones, reflective vests. So when they walk through, they do a good job of looking through the park to minimize anyone getting locked in.
Have you had any issues recently with that? I know there was some early on, but have you seen any issues?
Recently, no. I mean, the issue I'm having right now is I just don't have staff. I had someone today call out, which affects the way we lock up because now they lock up a side and a half rather than each person locking up a side. So some of the parks that we do go to are very, very problematic and aren't safe at all, but we try our best to make sure we either get park patrons out the park. There's a lot of homeless. There's a lot of drug activity in some of the parks. So we try our best to make sure we lock it and people are safe.
With regards to that drug uses and safety, is there a reason why all of these parks are open 24/7? Is it just
that was the
because
commission's decision?
The commission's decision?
He went through the whole, and it wasn't only District 3. He left. There were several parks in all the districts that they opted to leave open.
That was a commissioner decision as opposed to any real discussion.
Correct. Yes.
Right. I'm going to circle back. I see 2 hands. I'm not sure if Carlin was first or Josie. Michael, if you want to tell me who was first. I don't remember. All right, Carlin, go ahead.
Hey, Carlin.
Josie, go first.
Hi, I just wanted to ask about Lillian Wald on Gouverneur. That's being closed even during the day.
Because it's a JOP.
What's a JOP?
So the JOP are joint operations with the Board of Ed. Those sites, those parks are either connected to a school, and the school has use of those parks. So during school operation hours, they stay closed. Under the agreement, someone in the school is supposed to open them up. A lot of these parks are not getting done by the school. So usually when my staff goes out, we try to make sure we open them up. But they're going to, by the time they get there and get all of them done, they're only going to be open for 2 or 3 hours the most.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they're not open, and people like to use the handball courts. They like to use the basketball courts. They like to run around the perimeter of the park, and so it's closed. And then they like to do the exercise in the inside of the park, but it's closed, so no one can use any of the activities, and there's really nothing, and there is nowhere to go for any of these things.
No, I understand, but that's part of the agreement with the Board of Ed of using these locations to assist the schools. And usually it's locked down from 7 to at least 3:30.
And
It's
that's
never like this. Was this agreement recently made?
I've been here years. It was way before I was here. So we have multiple sites in District 3. Trevor, I could email you. I don't have it in front of me, but I can email you all the JOP sites.
okay. If that would be helpful, because I think it's an issue for with regards to schools as opposed to parks. And I understand the JOP has different rules, and they've been closing parks, and some of the parks are not even open at all if they're attached to a playground because they just don't have the staff to open it up. But we probably need to raise that over in the Education Committee. I'm going to move to Carlin.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Jamil. You left out Columbus Park.
Columbus is not
Park.
District 3.
Well, you say you're responsible for the whole of Manhattan.
Yeah, all right.
So that's why I brought that up. I mean, the park hasn't
Well,
been locked.
Columbus we still lock up Columbus Park.
I'm out at there right before 5 o'clock every morning, and those gates are open, except for the basketball area.
Part of the problem usually the problem we do have with Columbus, it's the homeless population that's usually utilizes the park. So usually it's not safe for my staff to go in there and remove people. That's something that's not safe for us to do, especially at night.
So you can imagine the public going in there. There are no lights in Columbus Park. You know that, right?
I know there's lighting issues there.
Lighting issues. There are no lights. But you know, so I'm saying, if it's not safe for your staff, it's not safe for the public.
And I think what Jamil's saying, because I don't want, he's just bringing this information, and we're supposed to just discuss this, is that and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you find homeless people in there, you can't physically remove them, you can't close the park.
Correct. And usually when we put a page, we reach out to PD. Our PEP division is if it's before 12. Sometimes they're too far away to get there, but usually most cases, I mean, we had an issue at Columbus, I think it was Monday, where one of our staff was locking up and he was spit on in the face by a group that was drinking inside the park. I mean, a lot of these sites are not safe at all. I mean, what I could do is, regarding Columbus, Jamal Patterson, who's the PRM manager for that district, I'll bring it to his attention so he can address the light issue.
And that's Jamal Patterson for that area, correct? Both of you have the same first name, which makes it a little confusing.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Wendy?
Wendy,
hold on. Wendy, hold on. Sorry, I just saw a hand. I need to go to committee members first. Are there any other committee members? Any other community board members? All right, so we'll take your question, Wendy.
just mentioning Strauss Park on Rivington Street has been locked quite a bit. It's also next to school. And I also want to say yesterday I was at Pier 36 at 12:30 and it was locked.
They're not responsible for Pier 36 because it's not park managed, but we can discuss that in a later update. But you want to talk about the first part, Jamil?
Strauss is a JOP also. Trevor, what I'll do is I'll go through my emails. I'll find a list of all the JOPs so you guys are aware which sites don't get locked up, that are locked up during the day during school. When school's out and during vacation times, we do open it regularly.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing a problem here, which is part of our committee, but it's actually part of the education committee because those parks are operated by the schools or jointly by the schools and parks that we need to address in that committee, or at least raise the issue. Any other questions regarding parks hours? Jimmy, let me ask you this. It's impossible to tell what our economy is going to look like next week as opposed to 3 months from now, but warmer weather is going to approach. Have they said anything about staffing issues, which appears to be the main problem, or at least from what I can tell?
It doesn't look good, honestly. I've been asking them for seasonal staff, which I'm not going to get. And right now, at this point last year, I had over at mid-80s staff-wise. Now I'm down to low 30s.
And those the problem I think we're facing, in addition to your low staffing, is that you have a staff that you're responsible for all of Manhattan. That and it makes it
at the end of the night. We locked up everybody.
And
we've been trying. That's one of the things I've been trying to do since I've gotten here, is share the load of of locking things up with some of the districts. They can lock up their own, but it hasn't happened. So
and that's probably a bigger conversation now that I'm thinking about it, so that we can ensure that at least in our district, our parks are open to close at reasonable hours, especially.
But regardless of if I'm short-staffed, I always make sure District 3 gets done first.
Okay. Well,
that's always been my priority, ensuring that District 3 gets done before we go out to other districts.
Understood. Any other questions? Kay has a question. No, Kay has a clappy handy thingy. Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Jamil. We're going to go to the Adoptive Mentor Program. Is there someone?
Yeah, hi. I'll be speaking on that for Parks.
Okay.
Trevor, you forgot Wendy. Wendy had a question.
She asked it.
Wendy asked her question, Josie. Sarah, do you need to be able to show a presentation?
Yeah, I have just one screen I'd like to share. So if you can grant me access, that would be great. And I can share that with everybody.
Sure. While Michael's doing that, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Kuris, and I'm the one of the marketing managers at NYC Parks. One of my responsibilities is managing the Adoptive Bench program. So thank you all for your interest in it. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of the program. Right now on the screen, I hope you all are able to see a photograph of a current bench plaque, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Parks does have a bench adoption program. This covers parks that are under the NYC Parks purview, and you can put a plaque on an existing bench. We're able to install plaques on benches that are wooden or recycled plastic lumber. We're not able to install plaques on benches made of metal, just so you know. Bench adoptions start at a donation of $1,500 for a 10-year program. For parks that are under our purview, the top level for a donation is $2,500. The donors that adopt a bench, they can determine the inscription. It's usually in memory of someone who has passed, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be an anniversary. It could be a birthday like what you're seeing on the screen. I've had wedding proposals. I've also had in memory of pets, people's pets that they've lost. So it doesn't even have to be a human. It really can be anything. We have some guidelines that are in place to, prevent advertising statements or, obscenity or things that are not family friendly from going on the plaques, but otherwise it's fairly open, but it is open to our discretion. If you're interested in adopting a bench, you can reach me. I'll give you the email here. I'm actually going to just scroll down on this flyer so everyone can see how to reach me. We do have a website page with a tiny bit more information, nyc.gov/parks/adopt. And the email to send an inquiry about Adopt a Bench is adoptabench@parks.nyc.gov. And my office number is there, but because I'm working remotely, email is the fastest way to reach me. So that is what I would like to share. So now I'm ready for any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to sort of ask a few to give some background. There was, I believe, a bench in Seward Park that was adopted, and we were just unaware of this program. Mm-hmm. So I have some general questions. Do you know how many of these benches are in District 3?
I don't know if I have a full list, but I looked over the past couple years, maybe the past 3 years or so. So this doesn't count benches that were adopted before the past 3 years. So I don't have a full number for you tonight, but in Tompkins Square Park in the past 3 years, we had 9 bench adoptions. Columbus Park, 3. Seward Park, we had 2. Although I believe one of the plaques hasn't been installed yet, but it has been adopted. And then we also had one in Abe Level Park.
And the money that for these particular plaques, does it go to the park itself, or does this go to parks?
Sure. So it goes into a Manhattan account and then can be spent at that individual park.
You say, is it spent at that park, or
Hello, Trevor?
Yes. I don't know who's speaking. Someone said my name.
Oh, it's Jamel. I have some information about what you just inquired about. The money that's being used at Tompkins is going to be for horde equipment, for blowers and lawnmowers. They're all battery operated. They leave them all is going to be for plant material and paint to paint the new benches we're going to install. And Seward is going to be for horde equipment, which is probably battery operated blowers.
Okay, so the general. I guess the general answer is that the money is used for, it goes to the park that it's being, the benches are being adopted.
Correct, yes.
And can anyone do this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, anyone can do this. Individuals, I've also had organizations do it. Companies can do it as well. But as I mentioned, it cannot be an advertising statement. And we also don't allow any logos. So it could be the name of your company, but it cannot say to visit their website. It cannot say to purchase a product. It cannot have, a social media handle or anything like that.
And how old is this program? I forgot what you said.
I believe it's at least 10 years old. I don't know the exact date that it started, but it does predate since I've been at Parks.
Okay. I'm going to go to the committee now. I know Carlin had his hand raised. Carlin?
Yes, hi, I have a question. It says maintain for 10 years. Does that include replacement plaques if it's vandalized?
Yes, it does. If the plaque's vandalized or if the plaque goes missing, which has happened on occasion, even though we do use theft-proof screws. Sometimes people take, some tools up to it and rip them off. We will replace the plaque as many times as needed during that 10-year period.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Any questions from community board members? Michael, I have half a screen. I don't know if you see anyone with their hand
I'll
up.
stop sharing. Sorry.
Lisa had her hand up, but she took it down, so I assume her question was.
Yeah, I just wanted clarity on the 10 years.
Sarah, I'm just going to say this. So I assume if my initials are DJT, I can put a plaque there.
You can, but as I mentioned, no advertising
Donald J
statements.
can put one there.
Yes, yeah, it's not limited. I mean, I will say though, if there's any type of hate speech or, calling for things that are illegal, we will not permit that type of language on a plaque, but that goes for anyone.
Understood.
Trevor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I'm just wondering how specific can the donor be? Like, can the donor say, I want it on that particular bench in this park?
Yes, they can. So what I usually tell inquirers is that if there's a plaque on the bench, it's not available, because it's been adopted. But I do always ask a donor to select at least 2 benches just in case that bench has already been spoken for, because they might not know when they go to the park. And also it depends on when they make the donation. If they reach out to me the day after someone's made a payment and then they send me the photos 3 days later, the person who made the payment first would be the one to select that bench first. But they are able to go to the park and select a bench in that manner.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? All right, thank you, Sarah.
All right, thank you all for hearing this.
And I'm sure that most of the folks who are on the committee did not know about this program, so that was informative.
Sure. Would it be helpful if I can, maybe I can send the flyer to Jamil to send to you to circulate out for anyone who's interested?
Sure, that's fine. That would
Okay,
help.
great.
Thanks. Next up, we're going to have ESCR signage. And just for committee members, we are going to do a resolution on this. So we're going to have to do bullet points. Kind of just found out about that. So I apologize, but we're going to do some a bullet point format for the resolution. So I'm asking for everyone to pay attention so we can get through this in a rather short time. Michael, do you know who's presenting this particular item?
I believe that's Maggie Hopkins is sharing her screen, correct?
Yes, that's me. And I believe there is also a general ESCR project update.
Correct.
So do you want us to go first with the signage and have the project update come later?
Let's do the project. Yeah, let's do the project update first.
Okay. So that is not me. I think that's Desiree.
That's Desiree. Desiree, do you need to share your screen?
Yes, please, but I think I have sharing. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, yes, I do need to share my screen.
All right, you should now.
This presentation is not what we're doing the resolution on, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, can everyone see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect. So good evening, everyone. I will be switching my head to look at my computer, but please don't take that the wrong way. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here again. I'm Desiree Gazzo from the HNT Biliro joint venture team, program manager for the ESCR project. And I'm here to talk about updates to the ESCR project. As usual, we will cover all of the kind of projects within the program of ESCR. I am joined by our DDC team and a couple of folks from our HNTB Lero team as well. So we'll start the presentation. The presentation will be broken up into kind of 3 parts. I'll go through them all and then we'll take questions at the end. But basically we have the construction phase updates. We'll go into the construction mitigation and environmental monitoring, and then what we've heard section where we'll talk about some other items. Compost, we'll mention section 3 MWBE, but that part will generally be a shorter part. So as we usually do, we put up the slide of the full project area, which mentions the parts of the project. And then we'll give an overview of contracts. So I have TDC here, who's going to talk a little bit about project area 1. Jeff, are you available?
I'm here, yes. Hi, everybody. Jeff Margolis from DDC. Thanks for having us again. So I just wanted to give a quick update on the PA1 bid package. Based on the questions we received from the industry about the technical design drawings that we put in our contract, we decided as an agency to push the bid opening date back to February 8th. It's a slight delay in the procurement, approximately 60 days, but we thought it was beneficial to do that, again, based on those questions and addressing them. We'll continue to work on the schedule when the contractor comes on board, and we'll look for ways to incorporate time savings into that overall schedule to push the project forward. So right now, the East River Park, as it states, will be open through spring 2021. And we'll continue to provide updates as we get them. And once we have a contractor on board, obviously we'll have more to share.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So for project area 2, again, we've received notice to proceed on November 16th. We are in kind of the mobilization and site prep phase. And then for parallel conveyance, we have bid opening scheduled for early 2021. And then the CCLs for project area 2 MPC will come on board as those projects kick off. And I apologize, my voice is a little off tonight. So for PA2 anticipated activities, I know many of you are signed up for the weekly bulletin. So we'll have another one coming out tomorrow. They have been coming out every Friday due to the holidays. We've had them out, before the holidays, kind of midweek. So we've completed the Astor Levy construction fencing. The construction signage is up at Astor Levy and Solar One. I have a photo of that coming up in the next couple of slides. And the air and noise monitoring has been, equipment has been installed as well. In progress is the submittal reviews. The Solar One construction fencing will be changing here a bit as we move through the kind of different phases of work for that area. So that is something that kind of will remain in the in progress column for a bit. And then the greenway rerouting signage, I'll talk to you about that in just a bit as well. And we continue to test pit and demolition activities. So the upcoming activities include the field offices, the site amenity removals and tree removals at Astor Levy, and then some rodent bait stations at various locations of the project. So for the pedestrian and bicycle access, we did send an advisory with this detour between 20th and 23rd Street around the Solar One building. So this actually hasn't been implemented yet. The contractor was able or is able to leave the greenway open, and just with a lot of these advisories, we try to put out advance notice for the community. However, if the contractor can keep the greenway or whatever the pedestrian way is open longer, then they will do that. So I just kind of want to put that out there as we're moving forward. So the contractor was able to keep the greenway open. However, when he does need to close it down, the signage will be put up. You'll see that in the next slide. And then the detour will be a shared zone around Solar One. This detour will last until the end of the month, when a new detour will be in place, because the work around the Solar One building will just be too unsafe for pedestrians and bicyclists. So that detour, which we're just kind of finished coordinating with DOT yesterday, will be the East 20th Street detour to 1st and 2nd Avenue, and then to kind of 37th Street. So we've been, again, coordinating with DOT on the signage that we need to put up for that detour. And again, that won't be until closer to the end of January. We're working on the updated advisory, which we will send out and then have posted on site. Another detour that we have ongoing conversations with is the Avenue C detour under the FDR Drive. So I know that's a really important detour, and we are continuing conversations with that. Again, we've had ongoing conversations with DOT, and that is one of the items that we are continually discussing there. So it is ongoing, and please, be patient with us as we work through that with the contractor, DOT, and our HMT Bureau team. These are just a few of the signs. The construction sign is actually posted, and then these are examples of what that shared zone will look like here around the Solar One building. Communications, we continually kind of update our website. We did an update on the communications page to make it a little bit easier to understand where to submit an inquiry, sign up for the newsletters, and kind of reach out for printed notifications. So, take a look at that. And then this is, again, the most recent community advisory that we've sent out. So we'll go into construction mitigation and environmental monitoring. So the contractor is responsible for a set of construction plans, which we had presented in earlier presentations. This is just a little bit more detail. I know we've received quite a bit of questions on it, so we wanted to present that, and I won't go into every word on every slide. The slide deck will be available if folks want to go back and take a look at it. But generally, there is the construction health and safety plan, and this primarily focuses on the construction workers' safety and the site safety, personal protective equipment, emergency response procedures, COVID rules and regulations. That's in place for the contractor, his sub-consultants, and the site. Then we have the noise and air quality monitoring plan, which again is currently under review by our HMT Bureau team in DDC. This sets the monitoring locations, reporting, maintenance protocols, etc. It also includes the dust control plan, which is in compliance, again, everything with New York City codes, DEP construction, dust rules, etc. We'll get into that in a couple of slides. Then there's the vibration control plan and monitoring, and this is to ensure that the vibration produced by construction activities are within safe limits for the structures that surround the construction site. And then lastly, there's soil mitigation. These are implemented in accordance with a remedial action plan, which is reviewed and approved by not only our team, but also by DEP. So there are kind of multiple levels of approval and review for the plans that the contractor needs to submit for the project. So construction mitigation. So we talk about construction mitigation, and that is really the strategies that are put in place to mitigate the impacts from construction. So the first step are these reduction strategies on the left-hand side. That includes the dust control plan, and then it includes a number. Again, we included only a few here. There are others, but using low sulfur diesel, making sure the trucks that are hauling loose materials are properly tarped and covered, making sure any on-site storage piles are tarped and covered. So the first step in air control, air mitigation during a construction are really these steps here on the left-hand side. And the contractor, is aware that these need to be followed. And then we have our inspection staff that make sure, again, that they are being followed. The second step to this is the monitoring, which I know everyone has been very, interested in hearing about. But the monitoring is really like the second tier to confirm that all of these dust reduction strategies are proving to be effective. So the monitoring, again, is set up in several locations, and it's different for PA1 and PA2. There's the quantity is different for both projects, and those monitors move as the construction moves. So essentially for PA1, there are different phases of the PA1 construction, and the monitors will move in accordance with those phases. And this measures airborne dust, and then meteorological data, humidity, precipitation, wind direction, because that greatly affects kind of how the monitoring is worked. And again, those are limits set by EPA and National Air Quality. So for construction mitigation, again, the same thing. We have the first step is the noise reduction strategies that are on the left-hand side, which are kind of quieter modes, minimizing truck backups, minimizing idle times. Those are all, that's the first step in the noise mitigation control. And then the monitoring, again, is the second step, and it is very similar again to what we said for the air quality, and that meets the New York City Noise Control Code standards. For soils and excavation, again, that's a little different, but there are procedures in place as construction begins. So before any soils are excavated, there are soil core samplings to the depth of excavation to determine the use and, most importantly, the disposal of the soil. And that's really the key part of the soil core sampling is to determine kind of how the material is disposed, if it can be reused, if it can be amended and reused, etc. So there are on-site inspectors, both from the contracting team as well as the BMCR, which is HMTB 0, who are on site reviewing these procedures and the testing that goes on in accordance with these procedures. And then part of the soils and excavation kind of plans is the material handling plan, which the contractor needs to submit and needs to be improved prior to excavation. And again, this, like I said earlier, the soil mitigation is in accordance with this remedial action plan that's approved by DEP. So the monitoring, as you are all very much so aware, the commitments have been made in the FEIS and the record of decision. So, the monitoring is in place, the monitoring plans are being approved. And again, we have those independent environmental consultants that offer that kind of like almost the third level of the monitoring and mitigation. So we have the reduction strategies, we have the monitoring, and we also have the environmental consultants. So we really have kind of a three-tiered approach to, in working towards a safe environment for both the contractors on site and our community that is surrounding the construction site. The alerts for air quality and vibration are sent automatically to the contractor, PMCM, and environmental specialists. Now, just because an alert is received, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a kind of an exceedance or, there are many reasons why alerts are received, and investigation follows every alert, and that could be the equipment was not working properly. There was, a truck that was offloading material, right underneath the monitor. So there are many reasons why the alerts, may go off, and the alert is really to alert the contractor and the specialist that there is an issue for them to then look into. And when I say investigate, it means, they go to the monitor and see what the issue is, and then, rectify that situation. So if it's a windy day, the tarp is not secured 100% and the wind blows off, they go back and they secure the tarp and they make sure that it's secured. So there are many reasons why, an alert might go off. If, depending on the level of the alert, the work would halt for investigation and mitigation actions. Again, and then reporting, DDC has committed to doing at a minimum quarterly summary reports. Again, the environmental specialists have kind of just become on board, and we are working with them to determine what the summary reports look like. If there is, again, if there is an exceedance, after it's been investigated, if there is an exceedance, it is very typical for DDC projects to submit those findings to the public. So just like any other DDC project, we will submit the findings to the public once an alert is investigated. So moving on to our last slide here is the what we've heard slide. I'm going to pass the compost relocation question over to DSNY. I believe Andrew is on the call, is that correct? Maybe someone's muted. No.
He's unmuted. He should be able to speak.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. I have that problem all the time. Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew Hoyles. I'm with Department of Sanitation. I really just have a brief update in regards to our search, where really we have been searching for an alternative location. We have not found a new composting site at this time, however. We have been on a couple of site visits to identify an appropriate location, working with City Hall and the other agencies for this sort of relocation. But at the moment, unfortunately, we don't have anything as of yet. No final site has been ID'd. So we're going to continue searching for a location, and we're continuing to be supportive of the efforts. But at this moment, we don't have an update on a relocation.
Great. Thanks so much, Andrew. And again, we can field questions at the end of the presentation, should there be any. Thank you. Just moving on to emergency access. So coordination with FDNY and NYPD is an ongoing coordination from design through construction, through through construction planning, and then through the actual construction. We have received a few questions about this in the past, and we just wanted to make it clear that emergency access is designed again in the design phase. It is reviewed again during construction, and then FDNY and NYPD will actually go out on site and confirm that they can navigate through temporary barriers that are set up, road closures. So they kind of confirm in the field that whatever was kind of designed and agreed upon is actually is working. So DOT with roadway closures, the contractor is in constant coordination with our emergency access personnel, as construction goes through the many phases that it goes through, to make sure that they can still navigate throughout the project area. So again, we just wanted to bring that up again. Construction staging and equipment, that's another question that has come up. We could address that in another presentation. I think this presentation was quite full, and I'm sure we'll get questions. On-site bulletins, I know there has been an ask for a place where we could post on-site bulletins. That conversation is still ongoing. I just want to keep reminding folks of that, and hopefully here within the beginning of the year, we will have a better response for you on that. Section 3 in MWBE, as we spoke about at our last presentation with you in December, we did, I think just before that presentation, we had quite a large conversation between Bowie Studios, MWBE Section 3 subconsultant, and the DDC Office of Diversity and Industry Relations to look at potential kind of smaller outreach events that we can host in the new year. So that conversation is ongoing as we kind of continue into the new year. So we do have trying on if there are additional questions, but I will say that we are actively meeting with the contractor. They are submitting their plans, and everything is still very much under review. So Unfortunately, any specific questions we will probably be unable to answer at this point, but again, please, continue to ask either here or through the inquiry tool. And then I think for Pier 42, I just wanted to bring up, I see that they're on the agenda for later today, but there is, it appears that there is kind of an overlap between the Pier 42 project area and ESCR. However, we do ask that any Pier 42 related questions do get kind of routed to EDC. We've been trying to respond to kind of the questions that we've been receiving that there are an overlap in conjunction with parks, as a lot of them have to do with the trees. So please, just bear with us as we coordinate between all of the agencies involved to get the right answers out to you. But we are excited that everyone is using the inquiry tool. We do have a couple of outstanding questions we know that we are working on getting resolved. So please, do continue to use that. And again, thank you for having us here.
Thank you, Desiree. I'm going to repeat the same statement that I have before each agenda item. We're first going to go to the committee, and then community board members, and then those are the folks who are in attendance from the public. But I want to realize that, keep in mind that this is probably, 37th month in a row that Parks has come to us regarding this project. So this is just an update. We have 4 other items on the agenda. So I really don't want to spend too much time on this. And also keep in mind that there is a community advisory group that has some excellent stakeholders who ask excellent questions and at that particular meeting. And that's only focused on the ESCR project as opposed to a community board meeting, which we have a lot of other items on the agenda. I will say one thing, Desiree, that, and this happened during the last CAG meeting, this is more Zoom related, that I can't be the only one hearing that clicking sound. I know Michael muted everyone twice, but I think we all hear it. I don't know if it's a hardware problem with your computer, but I did hear it with the CAG meeting that we had last time.
Okay.
Sounds like might be either something on your desk or workspace that as you're moving around is like tapping near your microphone or something, but there's some weird clicking sound.
Is it happening now too? I know.
It only happens when you talk and not all the time, but mostly when you talk. But I would just refer back to your colleagues. Maybe they can figure out exactly what it is. But I did hear it at the CAG meeting. It sounded like your phone was buzzing every 10 seconds, but it wasn't that. So it's just something in the software.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll troubleshoot that.
Okay. We just started there. So I'm going to go to community board members first. And I think that Kay, community board members, can you raise your hand so I can queue up those who want to ask a question?
Got Kay and Valentina, Trevor.
Okay, I'll go to Kay first.
You could go to Valentina first because I have a few questions. So.
Okay, Val.
My concern is always back to this particular picture, which is basically this building over here represents Baruch Lillian Wall Jacob Reese, which is mainly low income, mainly people of color, Black, Latino, Asian American, and this is what it looks like to be flooded. So I guess the person who said that the date got pushed up, one of my concerns is basically from the New York City Design Commission. Their certificate of last year states final approval is conditioned upon commencement of work before January 21, 2022. So I'm always concerned when it's pushed back. In terms of this particular area, I'm glad that they're on time with Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper Village, but I'm concerned about the people of Baruch, Lillian Wall, Jacob Reese, that they get protection too, and that what does this mean in terms of this not being, of this getting pushed back? I'm always concerned when I hear the pushback. So what does this mean in terms of this area got pushed back?
Sure, and I'm going to let Jeff take that question from DDC.
Sure. Thanks, Valentina. I appreciate the question. I think you're referring to the Public Design Commission. Is that what you were referring to? I don't believe we can double check on that. I don't believe that restricts, we did officially start the ESCR project. I understand, you're really referring to the East River Park portion, the PA1 portion. I don't think that restricts anything in terms of our procurement timeline. However, we'll double check that and get back to you. Obviously, we want to start as soon as possible. That was always our goal. As you know, this is a very complex and unique project. So I think that played a role in some of our concerns about the questions we were receiving. If we don't answer the questions now, they tend to come up during construction, and then it's just harder to address them, and it creates delays at that particular point in time. So again, the idea was to have quote unquote a clean bid, answer every question we received, and I apologize for the screaming children in the background, and make sure that this was our final bid. And I assure you that none of us want to come back to you in February with another update that we've been delayed. So I think our team is fully on board in making this February 8th bid opening happen. And as I mentioned, once we have a contractor on board, we'll do everything we can to review their schedule and find ways to create time savings in that schedule.
So this should not impact, like I said, I'm reading straight off of their certificate. And it says final approval is conditioned upon commencement of work before January 21, 2022. So this is not going to impact that. That's my question, is that I want to see the people there protected. And I know that while this is stating this from that perspective, there's also the perspective of the money, and that there's deadlines on the money in terms of this project. And so what I just want to know is that it's not going to impact that this is going to get done. And one of the other things I remember very distinctly when I went to I represented Power Partnership, and I went to the city council hearing. And I remember one of the things, I'm almost positive it was Representative Mark Levine that complained and stated something about the fact that there were some other places that didn't have the total money, and they didn't get it, and the park got dug up, and then didn't have the money to do anything after. So that's my concern. So I guess next month when you come back, my concern is always going to be that the folks there get protection and that it stays on time so that the money is available to get it done in this section of town, which is low income, Latino, African American, Asian American.
Yes, thank you. That is absolutely our goal as well.
Okay. So that's the question next month. You can bring it back and just figure that that's always going to be my question.
I certainly hope we're not back next month with another time extension. So
yeah, I hope so too.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to move on to the next question. Let's.
Okay.
Oh, let's go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, did you have one?
No, I'm trying to be sensitive of the time, so I'm going to refrain from asking all of mine. So go ahead.
Yeah. So and by the way, Jeffrey, I always feel happy when children are screaming in the background. It keeps us from screaming here.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Mothers, know this. So is there anyone here from Parks Department who has the authority to answer questions authoritatively? Would be my first question. I think not.
No, there is, this is Melissa Haldeman from Parks. What is the question?
Well, I don't know, did you attend the 1218 5-hour hearing that was held with the joint sanitation and Parks Department?
No, I did not attend. I did not attend the hearing, but I'm familiar with the content of the hearing.
Okay, good. So that was a 5-hour hearing where there was not every single person who testified and all the council members seemed to be in agreement that the potential loss of compost in parks would be a disaster. There was a lot of testimony. I don't think the council members got a direct answer. We keep hearing about the firehouse is going to be fixed and this and that. That's great. Happy to hear it. But without an active composting program, basically it's not really a functional community space, and it's a big concern. You know, many communities, mostly poor communities, who've had their compost already essentially shut down in Red Hook, the big reuse, and the potential for the Lower East Side Ecology Center really is not in keeping with the mayor's own goals for climate zero, you know, his zero waste climate goals. So I guess, you know, we keep hearing many different things, but I think the question that never gets answered is to have the promise and ironclad commitment that the compost yard returns to this park once the work is done. And we never seem to get there. And there was a great many people talking, and one architect who said, right now there has to be, she's a designer, designed some of your buildings, that, you know, the architects were given a design which either has a design with a compost yard in it or not. And that if it isn't, if we have to return to do something about the waste, it'll be a lot of money to retrofit this park. Just on so many levels, you know, we had just heard that we've lost staffing for parks, and these community volunteer programs bring staffing in. And it looks like the struggle is to find a site for the compost. And I would love to offer Sarah Roosevelt Park to help you find a temporary site here. As I know, I'm the president of that coalition. I think it would be a heavy lift, perhaps, but that somehow it looks to me and many other people that what Parks is actually saying is that it doesn't want composting in New York City parks, which is astonishing that we then will be schlepping our waste to poor communities south of us. That, you know,
hey, I'm just going to
environmental.
speed you up a little on this, and also
Yeah,
have Melissa introduce. And also, I need Melissa to introduce herself. I know that Brian is taking notes, so I want to make sure she introduces herself because we know she's from Parks, but we don't know what her title is.
Melissa Haldeman. My title is Senior Project Manager, NYC Parks.
All right, thank you. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, and I'm sorry to have to do this, but I'm not going to an advisory committee meeting. That's not my job. Our job, I think, is to be the public place where people get to ask questions.
That is true, but I'm trying to get the question out of you so we can move. That's all I'm trying to do.
Well, then exactly. It's the question I'm trying to get out of Parks is an answer, which we've never gotten. And speaking of how many months we've been having these meetings, I don't care about chairs and designs anymore. I'm with Val that I care about public safety, and I also care about climate resistance. And we have not gotten an answer here. And this has been months and months and months. And, you know, people want answers. People have to plan. I don't see.
Okay, I'm going to ask you once again let's see if we can get an answer for them, because we can speak for half an hour on this. We do it every single month, and I agree.
Yes, we do.
So let's see, but there's other forums other than just the community board.
Where? I mean, honestly,
the 5-hour hearing that you went to is another forum. But let's continue, Melissa.
So yes, thank you, Trevor, and thank you for your comments and your question. Unfortunately, I'm not able to give you any more information or a different answer. I am happy to take the information back. We're familiar with the concerns that were raised during the hearing. Parks' position is still, we will negotiate in good faith with the Lower East Side Ecology Center regarding their return to the park after ESCR construction is complete. I'm afraid I can't offer any more information from Parks at this time.
Thank you. And go ahead, Kate.
We've had this answer every time. Trevor, as a community board, what do we do to get an answer? And saying you have a good faith, if you don't have it on the plans, you do not have a good faith effort. If it's not in the construction plans at this point, when it's out to bid, this just isn't true.
One
I don't know what people have to do.
One clarification I would add is that there, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There is precedent for projects happening under separate contracts in the same area. I would cite the Fireboat House as an example. The wet floodproofing project is not happening as part of the ESCR project. It is a separate project happening in the same project area. So just to clarify that there is a precedent for adjacent projects happening not under the same contract.
I just have to say that if it's not mapped, that's different. It's not mapped. The boathouse is mapped. This is different. And, you know, really it's beyond the pale. This community has had the runaround. You haven't told our council members anything straightforward. I mean, we've been pitted against each other. And I think Councilmember Reynoso said it quite well when he said this is, I'm not even going to repeat it. He says it better. So it's just, you don't have an answer. And for those of you who are with the other entities here, who these are your partners, I think you are obligated to bring your partner who has some authority to the table. I mean, the commissioner didn't even come to those 5-hour hearings, and a lot of people weren't listening when people were testifying, and the people spent 5 hours there. So I don't, you know, I don't know what else to say. You know, I think, you know what I'm afraid of? You know, somebody does a lawsuit and you postpone this project more, which is ridiculous.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Kay, if
Trevor.
you have any suggestions on what we should do, we have at least 3 resolutions. We have spent the last 12 months talking about this every single month. If you have any suggestions, no, I know, I'm just saying, just the issue that we're not doing anything as a community board. Like I mentioned at the last meeting, there are other venues. I mean, I know the frustration exists at the council level also, and with our other elected officials. My point here is that we have 4 other items on the agenda, and this is an update. If they've given us what their update is, we ask the same question, we get the same answer. We've written resolutions. And as I've said before, you don't have to go to the CAG meetings, but that is a 2-hour meeting at least that's focused entirely on ESCR. Whereas we have.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm not saying the community board hasn't. We have written resolutions, we've passed resolutions that I never meant to imply that if you thought I did. But my job is not at the CAG. My job is here because that's where people are told to go. They're told to go here to find answers, and they never find answers. So my anger, I would like to join those children, Jeffrey's children, and just, I'll go scream in the background. Okay, thanks.
The only reason why I'm suggesting to listen in on those CAC meetings is because that is focused entirely on the ESCR project, and it's very detailed, and they go into a lot of different things. Whereas the complaint at the CB3 level is that we don't spend enough time on ESCR because we have 4 other items that we need to move on to.
It's just the answer to a question. It's one question, it's one answer, that's all. I don't need to go to a big meeting about a lot of other detail. I don't really care. You know, the $1,000 bench thing is another, speaking of equity, you know, that's for rich parks. I don't know what to say about any of that, but okay, I'm out. Shut me up, mute me, Michael.
That was Michael. I don't remember who was next, but we're now at
David, you have David Adams.
7:44. Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question that replies to both the previous speakers. How difficult is it if something we said we're going to get doesn't get there? Is it to change the contract to get it? Is that going to be an impossibility? Then we have to stand on front of it. If it's not, then that's my question.
Sure, and I think, you know, I could speak to this if anyone else on our team, wants to add to that. There is a possibility to change the contract. As Melissa had said, it's not unconventional for there to be changes that happen throughout a project or different projects within a project. So I don't want to say that
Yes, and sorry, Desiree, just to clarify, I didn't say refer necessarily potential to change the PA1 contract. I was just talking about adjacent projects under different and separate contracts.
So you're saying is that if something is deficient, that we find something deficient and we can get the support for it, you can make an additional contract to cover it.
I'm going to punt it to DDCQ or Jeff. Do you want to take that question?
David, I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. This is Q from DDC. Can you repeat your question? I missed the first part of
In other words,
what you were asking.
our concern is that things we're supposed to have in our project is not going to happen. And if we find that and we can get motivated enough to make those changes happen with an additional or a side contract or something like that. But that's the question.
Is there an example that something's not happening other than the compost that we
Well,
just
the compost and let's take the composting. Simple.
Yeah, so the composting obviously is not that simple, unfortunately, but that's like
it's a simple example. I didn't say it was a simple solution.
No, yeah, understood. That's the only example that we can answer that at DSNY. Our colleagues at Parks, everybody's we have the full force with City Hall. Everybody's trying to resolve this issue right now. So unfortunately, like everybody said, I'm going to have to echo that again and just ask for patience and see how the city team can resolve it. But if there's anything else within the ESCR projects with our contractors,
I guess Mr. Mayor de Blasio will be out next year, so I guess he doesn't care. Thank you. Bye.
Any other questions from Parks Committee members? I just need one clarification.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if they, I mean, I know that they're not going to be able to answer it, but the what's been in the news this week about the FOIL request for the value engineering report that apparently doesn't exist, and if they had a comment on that.
Sure, this is Jeff again. By the way, all are welcome for if you want to scream with my children, please feel free.
I want to scream with them.
There's plenty of screaming here, trust me. So just to clarify, I think we've been fairly consistent as a city throughout the past 2.5 years. There's no value engineering report. There was a study done in the summer of 2018, an interagency study that looked at the different alternatives, and the outcome of that was put into the EIS, which were required by law and required by the ULURP to produce. So I think there just is a misconception about some magical report out there. Again, there was no value engineering report. There was a study done that, again, everything was incorporated into the publicly shared environmental impact statement that was shared widely. It was in the newspaper, it was on our website, it's still on our website. So again, I think that's what we've been stating for a very long period of time.
Okay, it's not really consistent with, I think, earlier messages that kept referring to a report that people always wanted to get their hands on, but everything's recorded now these days, so we can just go back to the videotape at some point.
Okay.
Thanks. I just have a couple of questions now with the extension of the contract bid to February, and probably work won't start until late spring. So I'm assuming, and maybe we need to be a little more forceful in our questions. I'm assuming that the compost yard will be allowed to stay in that location with the pushback date to at least early spring. I mean, late spring.
So again, there is I think, in previous meetings, we've talked about the early bid package where the contractor would make that compost area the passive lawn that the community could use to help provide different recreational alternatives when the park is eventually closed. That contract is technically still active. So I know Sanitation mentioned, Andrew mentioned before, that they are actively working with the Ecology Center to find an alternate location. If that is found in the next few months, let's say, then we would potentially reactivate that early bid package and start that work. I can't sit here and tell you definitively that, you know, we're going to move the compost, we're going to, excuse me, move the compost yard. We need to find a different location. So that's essentially the answer we have right now.
Right, and I think that wasn't clear because that early package is open and you're actually saying work could start.
Right, right now we're not moving the compost yard until Sanitation and City Hall and Parks can find an alternate location. That's where we stand right now.
And to Kay's and to be honest, everyone else's question, the city has taken a stance, which is quite surprising, that they do not want composting activities in parks. Correct? I mean, I'm just repeating what is.
Again, I defer to Melissa. I think she stated before that they haven't, you know, finalized that decision, but I'll defer to her if there's anything else she wants to add.
Melissa, is that the city's position?
Thanks, Jeff. So the are we speaking specifically about the return of LASIK to East River Park, or are we speaking about LASIK's compost yard continuing in the park until construction begins?
No, just in terms of overall city policy, which would obviously be LASIK return to East River Park, not the temporary relocation. Because what we've heard from the commissioner, and to be honest, in the city, is that they do not want composting activities in the park. So the question that we're asking is sort of bumping up against that policy. So I'm asking, is that the city's policy?
So the currently stated policy, is the same as what you've heard. Is that at the moment that Parks has concerns, you're aware of the legal issues associated. I am not going to be able to share anything different than what you've already heard from the city's position regarding compost and parkland at this meeting.
So for community members, I think our efforts are going to be to pressure that policy overall for the city, which affects LASIK's return to East River Park, because right now the city and Parks has said that they do not want composting activities in parks. Okay. Kay, I see your hand and it's making me nervous.
It should. I just want to say vis-a-vis the legal issue that I do want to send something around to the committee where the National Resources Defense Council and another lawyer from another organization has absolutely refuted the very flimsy legal reasons that are vaguely put forward and then immediately followed by the Parks Department spokesperson, not you, Melissa, saying that, but I'm not a lawyer. So the precedent that they're talking about was an industrial waste area, and that's absurd. That's not what these are. These are community sites that give parks good soil. It's about lead abatement. It's about jobs for youth. If you know about BK Rot in Brooklyn, where young kids are being given jobs that pay them, that our youth could use these jobs to bike all kinds of waste to and from for people who can't do that. I mean, these are ecosystems, which is partly why it can't just be moved anywhere. And I think that this is a community resource that was built on the backs of low-income people and people who pioneered, are nationally and internationally known as pioneers. And this city is actually uprooting both big use that's under a bridge so that they can put parking and repair areas. This is absurd. And we're given all kinds of really very flimsy, not good excuses at a time when we are in the unprecedented climate emergency. It makes zero sense. And somebody from Parks at least ought to have the cojones to come here and say what you actually needs to be said. And I don't mean anybody who's here now. You know, that it's an insult to us and to our intelligence. Okay, I'm really done.
No, I
No,
understand, but I was just trying to get folks who want to advocate this to understand what the issue is, because we
You
keep
promise?
asking. Yes, I promise, to get folks to understand what the issue is, and if we can get folks to move for that advocacy. Are there any other committee members? Because I see two questions that we're going to go to, and then we're going to end this update on us, the ESCR. Any other questions? All right, I see Tommy had his hand raised first. Michael, can you please start the clock?
Thank you. And first of all, on the Lower East Side Ecology Center and the composting, at the city council hearing, which I did attend, Commissioner Biederman, and it was insulting that Commissioner Silver didn't even have, as Kay just said, the cojones to show up at the city council hearing, where they stated unequivocally that composting is not a use in a city park. And we are faced with that, and we have to confront that. The other update is on the value engineering report. Both Commissioner Grillo and the mayor made several references that a value engineering report was conducted by not only the city, but with outside consultants and nationally recognized experts in this area of resilience. So the fact that you are now saying that it was just an interagency report or study means that somebody is lying, because it was referred to several times and throughout the ESCR consulting period. So we need to know what you said unequivocally. There was no value engineering report. So I want to know if that is still the position, because somebody is lying then. Either Commissioner Grillo or somebody else or the mayor lied to this community. The other thing that we need follow up on is you failed to mention the Avenue C bike lane. That is now months away, when that was promised by Mitigation. The only available bike lane now is on Houston Street and First and Second Avenue. So that promise has also not been kept. And the air quality at the CAG, the CAG asked for an independent air quality monitor, not one hired by the contractor, and that the community get immediate updates on anything that's triggered by that air quality monitor. Right now, we're only going to get quarterly reports, which means that we can't respond as a community immediately to anything that comes up in the air quality as dangerous. Thank you.
Tommy, thank you. So in the interest of time, I'm going to give the agencies a chance to respond to those questions and statements.
So just starting with the last one, I believe Desiree, correct me, I think at the CAG we spoke about a monthly update for the air quality monitoring report.
The commitment to the community is quarterly at this point. However, we are looking into what other options may be for reporting. And as we mentioned at the CAG and as we mentioned tonight, those are ongoing conversations which we're having now that we're getting the consultants on board. We also heard the comment at the CAG meeting about the independent consultant, and we are taking.
Desiree, you're muted.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Was I
muted? That wasn't me, sorry.
Oh, okay. Was I muted the whole time or just?
No, just.
Right after you said that you finished talking about the report, the monthly report, the quarterly or the monthly, and then you were going on to the next thing that you were at the CAG.
Okay, great. So the part about the independent consultant for the environmental quality, yes, that was brought up at the CAG. That was a week ago. So we are, we're taking that back. The Avenue C bike lane, I did touch upon that on the detour slide. We are actively working with the DOT and the contractor to see what that could look like. It is not something that was in the original contract for ESCR. So it does involve coordination between all parties here, DOT, us and the contractor, and there's ongoing conversations about that. And as soon as we have an update, we will provide that information to you. I think those were the answers that I can respond to. I think, Jeff, there was the VE question, if you want to take that one. If there's anything
Sure.
more to say. I mean, I think we said.
Yeah,
pretty much,
I don't know what more I can say. I mean, clearly I wouldn't characterize the mayor or my commissioner as lying to the public. When I said interagency, there was a value engineering study that was conducted in the summer of 2018. But as I stated, there's no value engineering final report that's waiting to be shared with the community. And again, everything we were required to evaluate by law and as part of the ULURP that was approved by the council, the borough president, city planning, community board, etc., is in that EIS report that is publicly available. So again, I'm not sure what further we can say about that.
All right, thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go to these last two questions. I know Christine has had her hand up for quite some time. You can go ahead and start, Christine.
You're muted.
Yes, I'm muting myself. Thank you. I have a question or a statement really, or a question to Melissa, because I find it just really amazing that Parks is totally refusing to answer a simple question, which is being asked in the CAG and also here at the community board about the return of the compost yard, and always comes up with legalese like best faith efforts. Meanwhile, we see that there is no plan in the construction drawings for a compost yard. And I just want to ask what happened to the plan to incorporate the compost yard design that was developed by an architect that the Parks Department hired. We had agreed to incorporate that into the ESCR project. We had a meeting with Parks folks and DDC here in the Firewood House to discuss how to incorporate it, what happened with that plan. And I think it's really outrageous to say that we can change a contract. So what are we doing? Spending whatever, how many millions to build something where the compost yard is now, and then make another contract, rip it up and build a compost yard? That's very unlikely. And that's obviously not what's going to happen. And the writing is on the wall. And, Parks needs to just go up and say what their plans is and why. And and that's really all we are asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for keeping that to 1:30. Parks? Melissa, if you're speaking.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry. Sorry about that. Thank you for the comments, Christine. I will have to get back to you about that plan. It predates my time on the project, so I'm not prepared to speak to your specific question regarding this previous plan about incorporating it into the project, I'm afraid, at this meeting. On the other points, I think you're aware that I'm not going to be able to offer any different talking point or response at this meeting on behalf of Parks, but I will take it back.
And Melissa, are you going to be at our next Parks meeting?
You mean next month's meeting?
Yes, yeah, sorry.
Well, I guess it would depend on what items are on the agenda and if Parks is being asked to speak to anything.
Okay. Just for that particular issue on the original design, because I do remember that design, it does predate you, but there's got to be someone in Parks who knows about that design. I mean, it's publicly available. If that question can be answered, that'd be helpful.
Of course. So you're asking the question to be answered at the next meeting or follow up?
Yes, because it predates you and you don't have it. So I want to make sure that for the next meeting, we can at least get an answer to that question, because that is a question that can be answered. All right, thank you. Any more comments from Parks or DDC or any of the other agencies? Thank you. Frank, we'll go to you next.
Thank you very much. I'll be quick. In reference to the news that went around that sort of read as a gotcha moment to me about this environmental study versus report. If people on the community board or in the public audience, if they do have any written declaration that there is an actual report, I think that would be important to be shared, because my understanding was that there was a study, it went into the EIS, it was a comparison of all the different park designs, and I was under the impression that that's what that was about. So I just want to point out, because I wonder if it's semantical for some people, where they think they might have heard something, or people think that there was an actual report. And if that's correct, then I would expect that people present that. And in reference to using Deltaris and their comment about mentioning a report, I'll have to assume that that quote was taken at face value. But again, that's from Deltaris's position. I was under the impression, just to reiterate, that there was a study, it went into the EIS, and if people have proof otherwise, I would just ask and request that that is made and put forward to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And to Frank's point, if anyone has any information, if you could send it to the community board's office, the email's on the website, so that we can be prepared for next month's meeting, if that is the case. Thank you for that presentation. We spent a little more time than I wanted to on that, since we have some other agenda items. Next, we're going to go to the signage for ESCR. We do need a resolution on this, so committee members, look up at your computer screen.
Great. This will be fast relative to the scale of the ESCR project as a whole. This is a quite small part. So I'm Maggie Hopkins from AKRF. I'm the project manager for the design of the ESCR project as a whole. Some of you have probably seen me over the last 6 years. And as you may know, and I know Val has the PDC resolution in hand, so I know she knows, one of the conditions of approval from PDC for this project was that we develop a system of dedicated signage that educates pedestrians and the public about this new type of infrastructure that's coming into the neighborhood, and helps people understand how the system works and why it works and how the different components fit together. So we're here today just to talk about that signage system, which will be constructed once the project is complete. We'll come back and put the signage in or integrate it into the contract at the end. We're not exactly sure how that will work yet, but certainly the project's not waiting for this. So I'm sure I don't need to tell you all where the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project is. Keep going. And the way that we approach this signage is twofold. There is an overall resiliency sign that educates people about what happened in the neighborhood during Superstorm Sandy and why there is a flood protection system here now. And then there are a series of dedicated component signs that explain the specific pieces of the flood protection system, such as the gates and walls and how they work together. And so those two sets of signs work in concert to help orient people to the site and explain the project as a whole. And we are very fortunate on this design to have absolutely world-class designers from Pentagram actually designing these signs. And so I will hand it over to Paula Scher and Rory Sims from Pentagram, who will speak to the actual sign designs, and then I'll come back at the end to talk about where we're thinking these will go.
Hello, everybody. This is going to be very brief. The signs were designed to work well with the park signs that are in similar location and are nearby, so that they're not going to be crazy differentials between them. And the typography is very simple. The illustrations are very beautiful. And Rory, do you have control of the screen? Can you grab them?
Maggie has control.
I do. So yeah, just let me know when you want me to move through them.
Okay. Why don't you take it over and explain the content?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Rory Sims. I'm a senior designer with Pentagram. These signs have been developed in a coordinated effort with agencies including DEP, DOT, DDC, the Parks Department, have basically designed these to accommodate all of their various restrictions and fabrication methods. So following DOT's lead, we've used standardized dimensions that they use for signage. being in this case 12 inches wide by 24 inches tall. The reason for that is because these will be mounted at pedestrian height, and that is the kind of maximum width we can deal with, so that people aren't kind of bumping into them. They don't call me. For that same reason, they also have rounded corners. These signs are going to be mounted to standard DOT poles, sometimes to existing light poles if they are available, to minimize the additional structures. But if there is not an available light pole, they'll be mounted to a standardized pole, such as the one you see here. Again, these are kind of pedestrian height. This should give you a sense of the overall scale. As Maggie mentioned, the intention here is to give passersby some further information about the overall resiliency project. Maybe flip to the next slide. Here you can see a detail of the back. It might not be super clear here, but that's a very standard DOT sign pole, and this is mounted directly to that. This is kind of a summary of some of the things that I had just mentioned. These are going to be mounted to at a safe height. The signage color is still being evaluated, and that is something that we're going to test in the field to ensure optimum legibility for the signage. These are, again, just further details calling out the dimensions of the signage. So what we just looked at was the overall resiliency sign that kind of has a paragraph of text. Hurricane Sandy and the reason for the resiliency project. These signs are part of the same family, but address each individual within the resiliency project. So that is the core components being the flood wall, the floodgates, the buried flood wall, and the interceptor gates. This one here is specifically related to the flood wall. The only difference in the actual format of these signs is that they are slightly shorter. They're 12 by 18 inches, but also will be mounted at pedestrian height. This sign is for the buried flood wall. I should mention that the diagram style that we have chosen to go with for these signs is intended to be as minimal as possible. The reason for that is number one, is for clarity, but also to minimize the amount of visual clutter, to keep these minimal and simple and non-intrusive for passersby. They're more just something that people can read if they choose to, rather than like a warning sign or a caution sign. Additionally, the diagram style being not location specific is intentional as well. We're calling out, for example, here, the floodgates, but this will be posted at the various floodgates throughout the project area. And this last one is the interceptor gates. Probably the more complicated diagrams will see the interceptor gate buildings to kind of demonstrate what's happening underground. For scale reference, mounting detail, same as the earlier sign. This is which I've just mentioned.
Great.
So I'll hand it back over to Maggie for more information about the specific locations of the signage.
And before I do that, I'll say if we can share this presentation with you all so that you have the ability to sort of zoom in and look closely. I know it's hard at this scale to really see the signs in much detail. So we are planning between 2 and 3 dozen signs across the project area. You know, it's a balance to make sure that they're in key locations where people will encounter the system, but also not introduce too much clutter to the landscape, both on the city side and on the park side. So this is an overall diagram showing where we would intend to see each of these types of signs. Again, I know it's not particularly legible here, but the intent is that they're positioned strategically where it's the first place that a person might come in contact with the project. So either at bridge landings or at entry points to the park, or places where flood protection crosses roadways. And we'll look at a couple of examples of what these locations look like. So here at Montgomery Street and Governor Gardens, we would have both the flood wall and floodgate signs, since you see both of those in this condition, and it's one of the first places that people might encounter both of those. And we would try to mount these to existing poles wherever we can, working closely with DOT to that effect. But where we need to, we would mount to a new pole, like Rory said. And in some places we can mount to other existing street infrastructure, like the FDR Drive column, as you can see here. Moving into East River Park, you can see some of the intended places where we would put both the overall project sign as well as some of the targeted project signs. And the actual installation of these will be very closely coordinated with parks. I don't know if everyone knows how park signage works, but once a new park is built, Parks then comes in to install signage throughout the park, you know, showing where the different fields are and wayfinding and things like that. And so these locations would be coordinated with parks at that point and throughout the design. Here's an example next to the Interceptor Gate building. So this is on the other side of the FDR Drive next to Corlears Hook Park. And I think this is really one of the most important signs to really help people understand what this building is doing, since all of the important components are below ground. Really helps contextualize this building within the larger project. Some additional examples in East River Park. This is one at the Corlears Hook Bridge where we would have signs at the bridge landing so people coming into the park can understand how it fits within the resiliency context. Similarly, at the Delancey Street Bridge and at the Houston Street Overpass, very similarly. So you can see these really just tend to be the entrance points to the park. Again, at the 10th Street Bridge. And then at the north end of East River Park, you would see something similar. So for today, we've capped it at CB3's area of focus, certainly, but we would see a similar strategy throughout Project Area 2 and in the CB6 area. And so with that, Trevor, we'll turn it over to you for questions.
Trevor, you're muted.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to keep the presentation up because we may need to refer back to slides. I see Michael has a question. I want to know if there are any other community board members.
Valentina has her hand up as well. Ladies first, Val, go ahead. Val?
Yeah, I almost don't even know how to ask this, but the design commission, the statement is an educational signage system that explains the flood infrastructure in ESCR and sea level rise. The signs looked a little hard to understand. I mean, I understood, like when I saw Receptacate, I'm like, oh, okay, I know that's the gate there that comes out at Montgomery Street. That's because I've been participating. But I don't know if the average person that sees this sign would understand. I don't know that that would be educational. And that's what they have here, educational signage. So, I kind of think that there's a little something missing for the average person, for this to be educational, for them to understand what it is. You know, my thought always with education is that you want the learner to understand, and you try to put things together so that the learner learns. And I don't know, it just seems a little short or a little lacking in terms of what the design, in terms of educational. It just seems a little lacking for the average person, because just with what you showed us, if that's it seems a little lacking in terms of being something educational that the average person could learn from. You know, I would also have to see this a little closer, but it just didn't look like the average person would learn from this. And that's what education is. And
Okay,
I think
Paula, you're muted. Go ahead.
Okay, I think you need to read it. You know, I think you have to read it. If the copy seems too complicated, it's not really, it's a sign you walk up to. It's not a sign that you see from a distance and it shows you this thing. So you know, it is complicated, and that you have to engage with it differently than you do with a directional sign, or even a park sign. You know, it says keep off the grass. It's like three. This is really, it really is copy. And the question is, if the copy is too long and cumbersome, that's reasonable, and maybe we should look at the way it's written. But when you look at the diagrams and you read it, you can understand it is educational.
Can we go back to one of the signs?
Well, let me just ask one other question. So when do you have to, because the design commission says that unanimous final approval with the understanding that the following will be submitted for review. So when do you have to submit this to the design commission for review?
I think after 2 years.
There's not a specific timeline associated with that resolution. We intend to submit this to them for February review, so we would submit to them in January. But I agree with Paula. I think it's really hard at this scale, which we understand, because it's hard to read on the little Zoom screen. So we can send these, and I think it's a tension between wanting to keep it sufficiently simple so that you know, somebody can read it in a few seconds, but also be sufficiently educational, as you mentioned. So we'll send these over, and if you think, you know, with the combination of the text and graphics, there's still something missing, that's great to know.
Maggie, what we're tasked tonight with doing is to write a resolution so you can go before February.
Okay.
I'm going to take the comments and questions from the committee members and see if we can form some sort of resolution. If you send this presentation to the office, because we did not get this in advance, obviously it will be helpful. I think to Val's point about educational, I think we were just looking for something a little different. I understand when it comes to signs, you get DOT, parks, you know, DDC has their own requirements, and they almost wind up looking like, well, this is what DOT allows. You don't get that creative hand that I know a lot of those folks at your company probably want. I was looking for something a little different also that was a little more fun. I'm hoping at least that the color of the signs will stand out from a typical park signs. Otherwise, people are not going to pay attention, just going to walk right by them. So there needs to be something that's completely different from the color scheme that Parks uses. Before I continue, I want to go to Michael. Sorry, Michael.
Well, that's all right. I actually have a list of questions, so I'll rattle them off, and if you need me to repeat any of them, some of them are simple yes, no questions. Translation, are these signs only going to be in English, or are they going to be translated? The other question I have is there a way, and this can be used for translation and also for educational purposes. I think the one good thing that has come out of this pandemic is that everybody knows how to use a QR code now, because it's how we're all ordering food at restaurants. So is there a way that QR codes can be added to these signs to, you know, people to give them more information or to get a translation if they're only going to be in English?
Suggestion.
What's the font size? Because I wear glasses and I still have trouble reading the paper. And the last two things are these signs also related to the other thing that we keep asking for incorporated as far as waterline marks, so that people can see like how high the water was in the park at the time of the flood. I don't know if this is different from that or if this is the only signage we're getting related to Hurricane Sandy. And my last thing is more of a comment, that one sign that you have in Corlears Hook Park for the, nobody's going to see that. Nobody walks that path. The only people that walk that path are the Chinese gardeners that garden there.
Those are all great questions and comments. I'm scribbling them down as we go. And we will take them one by one here. So translation, at this point, we have only proposed these in English, but that's a great point and a point well made. And we need to talk with the city team about that. Same with QR codes. I think that's a great suggestion. And we need to see what the city's capabilities are. As you all know, with signage and part of how we've arrived here is that a sign doesn't last forever. And so it needs to be something that Parks and DOT can fabricate and replace in perpetuity. So those are great questions. Font size, Rory and Paula, I think you can probably answer that one.
Sure. I will have to double check the specific size. I will say that what we've done is try to keep the font size consistent across all of the signs.
I think it was
and
24 point. It's
I think
not,
it was a
it's not small. It's like, it's the signs are intimate. You know, as I said, it's not like you're reading this thing from a distance. If you're up close reading it, it's easy to read. If you're far away from it, you can't. The diagrams were kept simple, so you can read in relationship to it. I think the copy is pretty well crafted and pretty easy to read. Yeah, they're a little institutional. You know, they don't look like they're not pop signs. They're you know, designed to be in the park if you want to read them and, you know, get some sensibility about what's going on. I don't think everybody will. I think the people that are interested will.
So for the next question about waterline marks, I'm trying to find a rendering that shows it well, and I'm not sure we have one in here. But as we have previously discussed, it's been a while now. On the wall itself, we have elevation markers. So the lines that are, you can faintly see here on the wall, are each a foot apart, and at any of the beginning or end points of the wall, there are markers showing the elevation, and then that's described on the flood wall slide.
Okay.
And Pentagram designed those elevation markers, so the design of those markers relates to the design of these signs.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then your comment about the sign in Corlears Hook Park is noted.
Yeah. Trevor, I don't know if we lost you because I don't have a video of you anymore. Oh, there you are.
And Michael, sorry to jump in here as Q. We did have some of those renderings that Maggie just referenced with the markers on the walls.
Yeah, as soon as she mentioned it, I remembered it. As soon as she mentioned it, I remembered it. So thank you.
We can go pull it out and send it over if that's helpful.
No, I remember. As soon as she mentioned it, it popped back into my memory.
Great.
And I know there's going to be DOT standards, and this is probably not allowed, but if we can get, is there a way we can put two signs on one pole, one that's at a child's height, that's a little more fun and engaging, might allow you to be a little more creative, it's even simpler, and one at the typical adult height. I think it's important because this park is really for our future as opposed to folks who are probably on this call. But if that's possible, I'd like to see that also.
That's a great question as well. We'll check with DOT and Parks about that.
And I kind of wish we had I know Pier 42 is going to have a sign of its own, which will identify the park. I was hoping we could get some type of ESCR logo to sort of separate these signs from parks also, but I don't think we will have that. But it would be nice to have something that separates the two. No, I know, I'm seeing Paula shake her head. It's just that we're doing something. I know they have to be replaced, but if we could have a logo that would identify this, it'd be great, but we don't.
I'm right with you.
Yeah.
Trevor, you got another hand up from Ryan.
Ryan, go ahead. Sorry, Ryan.
No, that's right. I just wanted to echo the comment that I also find them quite serious and not super engaging. And I think that there's more of a story that could be told about the flooding and climate change and how, folks are working to address it. I'm not sure that it's captured, at least in the text I've been able to see close up.
And I think there's a difference between the interpretive signage and the historical and the sort of climate issues. And I think we kind of wanted to see both of those, and I'm not sure if you were tasked with that, but.
Can I just interject something?
Sure.
I think in listening to your comments, it's almost like you wish it was an exhibit and that there was, signage that talked about the whole program and then broke down why things were done and walked people through the process. That was not desired by the group. The group is very much about talking about these specific things that exist that are structures and buildings that operate a specific way.
No,
And
Paul, I hear you, Paula. But we've been meeting for at least 6 years on this. So I'm just trying to express it and follow up on what Ryan said, that I think when we put that on our resolution, we were thinking something a little broader. I know the assignment you were giving was to.
very narrow.
Yeah, very narrow, and I'm just trying to figure out how we merge this. But let me let Ryan speak further on this, now that they've commented.
No, I just was sort of concerned about the dismissal, right, that's happening right here. And I think it is our role to give feedback, and we're trying to give honest feedback, that's all.
Okay.
I really appreciate the work and, trying to have this march forever, what happened here. Along with Michael's thoughts about language, I think New York City has a fairly developed literacy set of guidelines, and some of it having to do with 4th grade reading level. So that it's accessible in many ways, not just language, but I know it's a lot, but.
That's a good point.
David Adams.
I'm just saying it's hard to read these signs, but the one or two that I could read seem to be geared. I don't know if you had 2-tier system of signs, because the ones I was reading, many people will not really read. They'll just gloss over because it's not that easily to be. They don't go to a park to be educated that way. They see something that'll amuse them. They'll look at it, but they're not going to read an essay piece and look at it and try to play around with it. It just I don't think the wording is appropriate for what for the target audience we're aiming at.
I would agree with David. I think the challenge that we're facing though is that we kind of asked for these signs in addition to other language that's going to be placed throughout the park, which is going to be on some of the flood walls and other areas. So
I just don't think this is going to accomplish what we want to accomplish, because I don't think people will take the time to read it.
Okay. So can you pull up the one that had a flood wall? Because this is making it a little bigger, or any sign that had a larger font.
Something that they can read.
Yeah.
And I can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you're on a computer, if you pull, you can get rid of everybody who's talking if you just pull your screen over, depending on what device you're using to make it bigger. And obviously, when you're looking at this, in the field, it's going to look bigger than what we're looking at on the screen. But I'm asking committee members, okay, you're taking a look at this. It's a flood wall, which we wanted to have identified and explain. What language would you suggest should go to describe a flood wall? Because it is
Well,
going to
well-
be, I will probably look at it. I mean, just because I'm crazy, but
That's why you're chair.
no, that's not why I'm chair. I'm an idiot. That's why I'm chair. Ryan, you can go. Ryan, you're muted.
Trevor, I just want to say, I think that's a little bit of an unfair question, is to ask us to come up with language, because this is not our area of expertise, and this is about educational language. And I agree with Kay that, that in engaging language, explanation language, we see them in, what are the DK books? There's a lot of sort of examples of how to engage folks in sort of a dry subject, like a flood wall. And I can't come up with language, but I'm just suggesting that I think that there is an alternative of the way the text could be used.
You could take out, if we removed in the first paragraph, because the thing is actually quite simply written. The most difficult part of it is really the first sentence, which is the long name of the Resiliency Program with ESCR project, an integrated system which somebody may not know what that means, but protects the east side of Manhattan from coastal storms and sea level rise. Really couldn't be simpler than that. This flood wall is constructed from concrete and steel and is designed to account for future sea level rise caused by climate change. The pattern and numbers on the wall show the elevation height of the wall above sea level. And I think that it's hard to make that simpler or more clear, with the exception of the first line where you have the name of the project, which is the most complicated part of the writing.
Okay, I'm going to come back one more time and just say that you're choosing those pieces of information to share. There are other pieces of information you could choose to share or decide not to prioritize those pieces of information. I'm not sure that the pieces that have been chosen, yes, they're clear, but I'm not sure that they're engaging.
That's something else. I mean, that's what they're building.
I would just say you define the term before you go to what's a part of, because people won't have to suspend that information for two sentences, and it's not the easy way. That's not the way people think. The flood wall you should have is a concrete and steel designed, and it is part of the Eastside coastal resiliency. You define the term so people don't have to think what they're talking about for three sentences until they get what your flood wall is.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, I know DDC had a comment before Val. I just want to hear DDC before Val, your comment, because the thing is, we're going to have to write something, and we're spending a lot of time on it.
No, Trevor, thank you. I just wanted to jump in a little and clarify a few points that I heard so far. So, Mike, that's a really good list of comments, actually, but especially the QR code. We'll take that back and see if there's a way that we can connect that to our website, which is more of a secure platform that we can have pages there that won't change as often. So maybe we can work with the design team and the city agencies and see if that's possible. On the note of the size of the signs, Rory, maybe you can give us an idea of what, because these signs, they're two sets of signs. One is going to be published on parks standard signs that fall within the park territory, and the second set would be out on the streets in DOT area. So then obviously the two agencies have different standards for their signage. So I don't know if Rory, if you have the dimensions handy that you could give folks an idea relative to like an 8.5 by 11 page somehow.
Right. So I guess a good way to think of it, a good comparison might be like the size of a vinyl record, like that wide, or an 8.5, slightly wider than an 8.5 by 11. It's 12, right? By 24, so 2 foot tall. This sign that we're looking at, and the other sign for the components is 12, so the exact same width, but by 18. So just a little bit shorter. And the rationale behind that size is so that they're not causing injury for people who are walking past. And that was a standard that was proposed to us by DOT. Also in response to the font size, something that I should mention is that we took this font size and the actual font from the parks standards. So
we
right.
designed the Parks Department signage. That was part of the reason we were hired for the job.
Yeah, and so if community folks, if you guys can see this picture on the left side, you can see 50% of this particular sign is a graphic. The other 50 is font. So for overall size of 2 feet, you can just imagine how big the font would be. But point well made. We'll take this back. And then I also wanted to address Val's comments, and also Ryan, you brought up really good points too. Appreciate all of you guys bringing all these points up. They're really good feedback. As far as the information and what's being illustrated and the language that's been chosen, and Trevor, I think this goes back to one thing that you brought up too. The goal was to specifically speak about components of this flood protection system, not overall climate change. Obviously, climate change is a much bigger monster of its own and has a lot of moving targets and pieces to it. So this is a particular system, integrated system into this area that will not change for decades. And we wanted to have an educational signage. So when you're standing there, and Val, this one goes for you too, that when just try to imagine yourself standing there in the park with this sign in front of you and the gate right next to it or behind you, that you can read this sign and look over to your left and you'll see that there's this big gate, the hinges, the size and magnitude of it, the industrial feeling of it, and kind of explained in this paragraph or half a sign content here that would walk people through just specifically the components of this flood protection system. But again, that's not to dismiss the feedback that we got. I think you all brought up really good points, and we'll go back and huddle back with the team and see what else we can do about it. So I just wanted to sort of elaborate a little bit more on that. Let me know if there are more questions.
Trevor, you're muted.
Sorry. You need this resolution for January, correct? And you're going in February, and you still expect to get comments from DDC after that, I would imagine.
Yes, so we're planning to submit January 22nd, presentation February 22nd. And this is just preliminary review. So there will still be PDC comments that we then have to address and go back for final.
So after I would like for you, after you get those comments from DDC, to come back to the community board to see where we are and to see what input they actually have too, so we can maybe have some more comments. Val.
Yeah, I think that you stated it. If you can put back up the one with the integrated system, if you can put that sign back up, that exactly what you said is exactly the issue, is that the first sentence is so complicated that the average person is going to have a hard time with it. And this you said. And so the point is, if you're trying to educate somebody, you generally don't make the first sentence so complicated that they're going to say, let me get away from this because I don't understand the first sentence.
I agree with you.
So I think, I think it's, I don't know another way to say this, but I think that I agree with you. And my problem is that when you sat down and did this, if you realize this, why did this end up on this sign? If you sat there and knew that this is something more complicated than the average person is going to be able to understand. And the other thing that when I look at this, I'm like, well, where's this wall at? Because I know that quite a bit of these things, like that interceptor gate, I understand where it is, whatever. But the bottom line is most people are not going to understand it, because the bottom line is that gate should not be out there to be seen unless actually people should not be down there, because at that point we're talking about a flood situation. That's when that gate goes across Montgomery Street. Otherwise, that gate is like backed up and, you know, where you really should not see it. So you got a sign that's talking about an interceptor gate, and if you show that one, it's, you know, so I just have a hard time with the education of it, and the fact that there's no, I know with quite a few of these slides that they've shown in the community, I've sat there with people that didn't even understand what they were looking at in terms of these slides, because there was no street things there, because a lot of this is not going to just be there. A lot of these things are going to come up later on where you're not supposed to just see them when you're looking at the sign, because you shouldn't be looking at the sign when we're being flooded or when there's a storm. That not, you know, and when that's when the interceptor gate comes out, because other than that, it shouldn't be out. So that's my thing here. And I think that you clearly understand it. That first sentence is going to turn off the average person. They're not going to understand it, and they're not going to read more if they can't understand the first sentence, you know, because I think that's, you know. Okay.
Val, I want to just clarify your second point about only seeing the signs when the gates are out. So the signs will be positioned so that you can see them and see the gate when it's in its stored and open position. So that helps people understand why those gates are even there when they're not in position.
How? I don't understand that then. How? You're saying when the gates are open, those gates are only supposed to be open when there's a storm or flood. And
Val, she's talking about they're actually open. They're closed when there's a storm.
Right.
Wait a minute. You know what? Let me just put it this way. When there's a storm is when the gate goes across Montgomery Street.
But you will still see the gate. You will still see the gate because it's in an open position. It still exists there.
No, but let me just say this about that one, because I clearly, the gate that goes across Montgomery at Montgomery Street goes across the FDR Drive when there's a flood. When there's no flood, that gate is not sitting there visible for you to see it, because it's only supposed to go and stop traffic from coming down the FDR when there is a flood.
So this is that location right here at South Street in Montgomery.
Right.
So this is obviously the sunny day condition. Right. When there's no flood. So you actually can see the gate here. It's certainly not across the street, but it is rolled back and is stored alongside the flood wall. So, in 364 days a year, this is what it will look like.
I don't really see much of it. Okay.
I mean, you can't see the whole thing here. Certainly, it's the angle is cut off, but you can see the start of the gate there.
I think to your point, though, Val, we can do a good
thank you.
We can edit this thing and make the writing much more accessible. I think it's just a little overwritten. It's not that hard to do.
I think one thing you can add, and I don't know, there's a lot of text and we get into editing, is you are standing here or you're standing on top of, or
maybe so. And the gate is across the street in a closed position or something. Because and that's also my point about the addresses, because when we've had these slide presentations, when they don't have the address there, I've been at presentations and the people were sitting across the street from where they were talking about. And when the address wasn't there, people didn't realize that it was about across the street from them. So, I'm just saying that if we're talking educational, I think either street names and, something, I think like Trevor just said, the gate is over there in a closed position. Okay, you're here and the gate is there in a closed position so that they understand that, you're not really looking at the gate, okay, thank you. I don't need to.
Trevor, I have one quick suggestion about the language. It will be quick. I think that activating the language, right now, the language is very description of a visual, and talking about it, activating like how it works rather than what it looks like or what it's made of, I think would be really helpful. And I think that goes to Trevor's saying about you're here, and how this functions could maybe be a way to get the language more engaging.
Yeah, I have to agree with Ryan with that. To say that, during that this gate opens up and goes across so that they understand that this is how it functions, I think would be helpful. That would be helpful.
Let me gather some of these comments so we can move off of this.
Trevor, can I make a suggestion if you don't mind?
Sure.
I think we got a lot of good feedback tonight, and I wanted to remind everybody this is obviously not final. As Maggie mentioned, this is preliminary, and first time you folks are all seeing it. How about we take all this back before you folks write a resolution? We take it all back and come back again with a revised design, and then we can plan for a resolution at that point. Would that work for you?
Yeah, that would work a lot better. Do you have all our comments?
Yes, I think we received quite a bit of comments tonight. So I just want to make sure that this is getting the attention and the time that it deserves and is properly being addressed. So that I wanted to throw that out there.
And
Would that change when you submit to the design commission?
That's something we need to, I need to go back and check in with our design commission liaisons to see how we can plan that. Definitely we'll keep you updated, but right now my priority is to take your comments back and see how many of them and what we can get incorporated. PDC part, I'm not too worried about. We can figure that out.
Okay, well, please let us know, because
they're going to come back next month.
Well, I mean, my thing is, let us know about the design commission, because I would definitely make it my business on behalf of the Power Partnership to show up or to write something or to respond. I would definitely make it my business. That's why I'm sitting here with the design paper.
No, I totally appreciate that. And if we do go to design commission for February, like we had planned, there will be a clear explanation of tonight's comments and feedback, and that how we're going to address it, or hopefully by then we'll actually have it all addressed and incorporated if we can. But again, that's a moving part right now that I don't know how it's going to unfold. So whether PDC happens in February or not, I want to make sure that we can address your comments.
Here's what we're going to do. Since you mentioned that you've listened to a lot of our comments, I'm also going to send the same comments to you, Q. I'm going to say by tomorrow, but it'll probably be Monday or Tuesday. Just a sort of summary of what we discussed, so that it is in print format and you have our concerns and comments on this. And if anyone
that would be helpful.
Anyone from the committee
can you send them a copy of the meeting or this part of the meeting?
Say again?
Can you send a copy of this part of the meeting to them? It's recorded.
Can I send a copy of this video?
Of the meeting, of what we're recording on this section. Is that possible?
I'm going to refer to our Zoom controller.
We could. I mean, I could theoretically download the video and just edit this part and send it to them, or we can just wait till the transcript comes and send them the transcript of this part of the meeting.
I like the idea. Someone mentioned interactive signage, which is, really be educational.
I think whatever works for you folks, but I think we got the big ticket items, which is wordsmithing and simplifying. There's a number of things that came out that we all took notes here. But yeah, Trevor, if you want to send me an email with a bullet list, that would be very helpful. And by the time the transcript of this meeting comes out, we can revisit it as well.
Okay. And Michael, I'm not going to ask you to edit that portion. If you want to bookmark the time, that's fine. But I don't think you should take on that burden of editing.
The transcript gets done tomorrow, so I can send it to you.
Okay, great.
That works.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Thank you for that presentation, and thank everyone for commenting. we're going to move to our next agenda item, and they're all going to be grouped together since it's all done by EDC. So thank you for that sign, for that presentation on signs. Amazing sometimes, but let's continue. EDC, how do you want to structure your presentation?
Good evening. I have a slide deck to share, so let me just pull that up quickly and then we can get started.
What are you starting with, Will?
In order, I'm going to do East River Waterfront Esplanade, then BMCR, and then Pier 42.
Okay. Will, just to note that the next time you come before CB3, you will go first, or the EDC projects will go first. I'm trying to split it. I don't think we get updates, and I don't think they're going to take that long. And in the presentation on signs,
this will be quick.
So I appreciate the fact, but I do want to spend some time on this because we wind up in the same situation all the time.
You never say this will be quick. That's how the sign people jinx themselves. They all say it will be quick.
It'll be quick.
This is going to take all night, so buckle in, everybody. How's that, Mike? Good evening, everybody. My name is Will Fisher. I'm with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, EDC. I have updates here on 3 or 4 projects, and I won't comment per Michael's advice on how long this will take, but I only have 4 slides, so let that be a premonition. So hope everybody's doing well. Happy New Year. I just wanted to come talk about everything sort of holistically on the East River waterfront. So folks know that in addition to the Resiliency project, which I'll cover next, we also have a significant amount of work going on the Esplanade, what we refer to as Package 4, as well as Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. So Package 4 is very nearly complete. The team was saying today it's 95% or more complete. There was a couple outstanding items, including a repair of a sewer outfall that was causing a potential sinkhole issue near Market Slip, and then just restoration of the area where the trailer was staged near Rutgers Slip. But both of those items should be completed probably by the end of the month. So everything north of Catherine Slip to Pier 35 will, on the Esplanade, will be complete and in final condition and turned over to the Parks Department. For Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, folks may remember that this is sort of the final section to be constructed of the original East River Waterfront Esplanade, which is funded by LMDC. This project, as folks might remember, last spring when COVID hit, we were forced in April to pause all capital construction projects that were not related to COVID relief because of the projections, of course, that the city had for many new expenses on the emergency response side, as well as decreased revenues, decreased tax revenues as a result of lack of business activity. So we were forced to pause all capital projects, and Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, we were just reauthorized to begin that project again in December of 2020 of last year. So folks may remember that we did come to the community board regarding the final design package for that project. So the design is essentially approved. The stage that we're at right now is essentially taking that design to construction documents and getting the permits and getting that to our construction manager. Hunter Roberts Construction Group is the construction manager for this project. You may recall that they did the rest of the Esplanade, so they know what they're doing out there in this area. We do expect probably by the second quarter of this year, so probably in April or May, we'll be in construction on that project. We would like to start obviously as soon as we can, but just given how long the project was paused, there were some staffing changes at the design firm, and just needing to get everything back up to speed is taking a little while. That said, we have authorization to proceed and are looking forward to getting that project built out. This graphic here, which which our consultant on the Resiliency project put together, sort of displays how you can, my mouse here is hovering over Knickerbocker, and Smith Houses is here. So you can see the three projects interfacing. We have package 4 to the north, Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade to the south on the edges of CB1 and CB3, and then BMCR throughout. So we're really excited to be back in construction on Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. As of November, I think we still had 500 capital projects paused throughout the city. So it really is good news, and still, unfortunately, an exception that that this project is unpaused and moving forward. So, Trevor, would you prefer I do all 4 slides, or do each individual project and take questions?
Trevor, you're muted.
Let's take questions for each slide. Maybe that'll move a little quicker.
Great.
So we're going to go to committee, and I know these are segmented projects. They're all related, but they're all different projects with different funding streams. So if anyone has any questions on package 4 or the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade portion. Okay, well, Val, go ahead.
Just simple question. What is the boundary of package 4? What are the boundaries?
I believe it's Slip to Catherine Slip.
It's Catherine Slip and
To Peck Slip.
Catherine to Peck.
Yep.
Actually,
which one is Peck? Where's Peck at?
Is that right, Trevor? Trevor knows this better than I do. It might be Peck or Rutgers, somewhere in
Oh,
between.
okay. So this is above Smith. This is north of Smith.
This is closer to the Manhattan Bridge.
Right. Okay. So this is from Catherine, which is right above Smith. Okay.
The
Thank you.
BMCR project area would be in front of Smith.
No, I was asking about package 4. So package 4 is from Catherine up. Okay. Catherine to Peck Slip. So it's not Smith. Okay.
Right. So that'll be completed, and then we'll begin construction on the portion in front of Smith, probably by April or May.
Just a question on package 4, since I live right behind that staging area for the trailer, which has been there for years. That was supposed to be a pavilion, and now it's a hole in the ground. Just a safety issue there. There were some kids playing in there today, actually, and it was a heck of an attractive nuisance. The lawsuit waiting happened because there are some sharp materials left. There was a gate, but obviously it's no longer there. I understand there's going to be some what you call restoration work being done. When will that start, and what exactly is restoration work?
I'm not sure exactly what it entails, Trevor, but obviously, like you said, the trailer was there for some time, so it's not in prime condition to be open for the public. So when I spoke with Catherine and the construction manager today, they said that work would be done probably in the next, probably by the end of January. So yeah, that just entails, taking down and restoration of the pavement or anything else that was disturbed by the trailer. I don't have any more specifics, unfortunately.
Just for an immediate concern is to lock that gate and make sure it's secure so that no one can get in that particular area.
Okay, great.
There are several holes in the ground between Rutgers Slip and actually all the way down to Catherine. The construction team placed cones in a few of them, but a lot of them still exist. What are they, and when will they be repaired? Because that's another dangerous thing we're seeing.
Right. So the project was largely topside improvements. I do know that, like I mentioned here, there was the sewer outfall repair, sort of a sleeve that we put around the existing combined sewer outfall to prevent additional erosion and potential sinkhole. We may have there may be the same issue elsewhere, but the specific that I was noting there was that the topside improvement did not include the bulkhead work for the most part. So the team may have marked those out for safety, but I'm not sure whether that's included in the scope of the project. Do you have the locations of those again, or you could send them to me on the side?
I know one of them's at Pike Slip, and they look like they're drilled holes, but they're extremely dangerous, especially for anyone on a bike or who's running. There were cones, but obviously if you need cones, people are going to take it. So all the cones are gone. So you just have holes in the ground. They're not really near the CSOs, they're just random holes in different locations. I can probably get a better map of where I think most of them are this weekend, but there's quite a few of them in that area.
Sure, I'll pose the question to the team as well about. I do know that we did a little bit of. I think we probably did some testing for the BMCR project, but that was some time ago, like months and months ago.
These are probably 5 to 6 inches in diameter or more.
Okay, got it.
And that's all. BMCR, we haven't seen that. I haven't seen that presentation in like a year. If you could just send that to the community board office so we can.
Trevor, just for clarification, that wasn't PEC slip. We're talking pipe.
Sorry, I meant to say pike slip. That's a good.
Okay, okay, thank you. Pike slip. Okay.
So if you could just send that the final design to the office, it'd be helpful.
For Esplanade.
And I'm asking because EDC's website for these packages, there's something wrong with your website. Can't find anything historical, can't find anything current on the EDC website. There used to be links, and a lot of the links are gone, and a lot of the historical records of previous plans are gone also. I don't know if that was intentional, but I have a few of them on my computer of 12 years that I no longer use, but that's the only place it exists. So if we can, I'm just a little worried about, institutional knowledge. If people don't know that package 4 should have had swings and some other things that are not there, then we're going to lose a lot of the elements of various projects unless we have people who have been on the community board like Kay, who could say you were supposed to do this and you didn't do it. But
Right.
It's been erased from the EDC website, so that gives me some pause.
And we did redo the website about a year ago or a year and a half ago, so they may have changed what was included. So the request, just to confirm, was the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade final design package.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And that's it for that page.
Okay, very good. All right, so moving on, going now to BMCR, Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resilience. As a reminder, this is a project that will reduce flooding risk both from sea level rise and storm surge in 2 bridges. We are moving right along. We had a big public engagement meeting in December. So thanks to everybody who came and who helped us get the word out. We had more than 100 people attend. Right now, we are working on getting those, the presentation, including the Q&A uploaded. We have that in 4 or maybe 5 different languages with the live interpretation. So it's taking us a little while to get that together, but all that should be up soon along with the presentation. And I'm going to show everybody just really quick here in a second the virtual reality tour that you can go on the website and see yourself, but just give you a really quick demo because I think it's pretty cool. Before I do that, just to remind folks where we are in design, we reached 75% design in December of last year. We are, as folks may know, while EDC is designing the project, DDC is constructing the project. So obviously we've been coordinating closely with EDC. They've been attending all the design meetings. We had a good meeting this week to talk about community engagement handoff. So we're staying really well in coordination in advance of handing off the design package to DDC probably in May or June of this year. So between that time, we are going back to PDC for final review. We went to PDC for preliminary review twice last year. The first time they had significant comments and Community Board 3 had significant comments. So we incorporated that for the second round of preliminary, which was late last year. We'll be reaching 95% design, more or less final design at the PDC stage in March. And I'm waiting to hear back from the team when we have a presentation ready for that so that I can share with the community board. And then by the end of the spring, May or June, we will have 100% design for the project. In that time, we are planning on doing another public meeting probably, unless things change drastically with the COVID situation, probably digital again. So we're going to focus that on the final design, how we incorporated folks' feedback, and then actually moving on to what will implementation of the project look like at sort of a limited scope. Obviously, DDC needs to, we'll need to have contractors on board before knowing many more specifics, but we can talk about the beginnings of implementation and then how the system will work and how it will be operated, how it will be maintained. So really quick, I'm going to go to the virtual reality feature and just show folks, and then I can paste this link for the website in the chat for Michael to share so that folks can see that as well. So give me just a moment, please. Great, so I just sent the link to Michael. This is the BMCR page. You might recognize this if you saw some of our flyers. The links on the flyers all sent you here. Scrolling down, this is where the webinar information will be posted, or the recordings. And then here we have the tours at 4 different locations of the project. So you, I don't believe this works on the phone. You might need to use a computer for it to get the sort of 360 view, but we have 4 different locations: Catherine Slip, Rutgers Slip, Wagner Place, and Market Slip, where you can see the project sort of in action. So as an example, I hope this works. Essentially, you play the video. It's like a video on YouTube, and there's some instructions about how it works. But essentially, it will show you and allow you to use your cursor to scroll around the screen, look around, look up and look down, and see what the project will look like. So here we are between Market and Pike Slip. Knickerbocker Village is here, looking out between the Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge. You can see here, you can see here what sunny day tidal flooding will look like in the 2050s. You can see our project is protecting the neighborhood from tidal flooding. And see, this is going as a video as you look around. So now you'll see the gates deploy, more or less what it looks like during a Sandy-like storm in the 2050s as well. Here's those gliders from Pier 35. We're installing some of those as well. So here you see the gates coming up, and then you can see that on this side of the gates, a lot of the programming gets submerged, but we are using resilient materials. And again, we have these sorts of views at 4 different locations. So you can pick one that is in your backyard and close to home and see what the project will look like. Of course, it includes the different programming. So we have up here near Rutgers Slip, we have the exercise equipment. And then again, you can see the sky gets dark and the clouds come, and then the gates close and the water rises, so that to sort of give folks a visual of how the gates work. We've done a lot of sort of static graphics and pictures, but I really hope this is helpful for folks. We had a lot of fun designing this, and that's available on the website. Cool. So I'm going to share again my presentation and then can take questions after one more update. Folks may remember, in particular, when the capital projects were paused back in April of last year, we were authorized to proceed with this project again in September, but we had a discussion of the federal spending deadline for the funds that are associated with this project. We have $176 million in federal money for this project. So there were a number of other jurisdictions in the United States that all got the same amount of, or got the same type of funding, that had the same spending deadline in 2022. That included cities and states So we partnered with those cities and states who were also, of course, forced to pause their projects due to the public health crisis to advocate to the federal government and to our elected officials in Washington to extend the deadline. So thanks in large part to advocacy from Congressmember Velasquez's office, we were able to get the deadline extended by 1 year to 2023. There's still a number of states and cities that are going to be pushing for additional time, but we were able to get 1 additional year for now. So, we'll be starting construction on this project. EDC will be starting construction on this project in the fall or winter of this year. And we now have an additional year of leeway on the federal money. And again, there's still a number of states and cities, including our partners across the river in New Jersey, who are going to be pushing for additional time. But that is a good piece of news that came out of the most recent COVID relief bill. This was tucked in there back in December. So we're really glad about that. And with that, we'll take questions.
Thank you, Will, for that presentation and that good news that funding deadline is extended. I still hope that we can get this project done timely and start fairly soon, because I've seen the news on the day tidal flooding up close in person, and it is happening in this particular area with the two bridges area being the two bridges area being the lowest lying area in downtown, all of the lower Manhattan. Just one quick question, and I see Val saying it's raised. You said you're going through PDC in March, or yeah, PDC. We may go on to PDC.
So we're going in March.
March. Do you have a date for that yet?
I'm not sure. So we would be submitting in February for a March for the March PDC meeting. I'm not sure. And like I mentioned, I'm waiting to get the presentation, and we'll definitely share it with you all at that point.
Thank you. Val?
Quick question. The Lower East Side Power Partnership, we sent a letter to Nydia Velasquez, Kirsten Gillibrand, and to Chuck Schumer, advocating for the money last year. So, I always like to thank them. So are we thanking all 3 of them? Because Chuck Schumer was at something recently, I think it was a community board meeting, and was talking about, his legislation coming up. And, so just, that's all I want to know, because we advocated for it, and, are we thanking them or
yes,
just?
I would certainly recommend that. That's nice of you to ask, Val, and good to see you. So Congresswoman Velasquez in the House and Senators Gillibrand and Schumer in the Senate. There is in addition to the New York City project, which is this, like I said, there's also a project in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Also Louisiana, North Dakota. There's also in upstate New York, or excuse me, Long Island. But anyway, yeah, for Congressmember Velasquez as well as Senators Schumer and Gillibrand were really, really helpful in this, and certainly would appreciate it. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Will, Trevor, if you don't mind me jumping in, it's Q again, DDC. This news actually applies to the Eastside project, ESCR, as well. We failed to mention this earlier. My apologies when Jeff was speaking about PA1 contract and the delay. So the great news, thanks Will for announcing it, and it does apply to both of these projects. But we, for ESCR, because we already started our construction and we had already planned to spend down the federal money by the September 2022 deadline, we already sort of have our ducks in a row and prepared for that, so we wouldn't lose the funding. But this gives us an additional year just in case some unforeseen issues come up, but we're in good shape in terms of not losing the federal funding for ESCR. Yeah, just wanted to add that a little bit, because I know there were some questions in the past on that.
All right. Thank you, Q, for adding that. It's valuable information. Although we hope that doesn't make people give people a reason to delay anything. You have 2 more slides, so if you want to continue.
What can I just Q, just so does that the thing is, I was looking at the what was that, the design commission, and they have 2022. So does that change too? Yeah, they say final approval is conditional upon commencement of work before January 21, 2022. Does that change too, or you still have to meet that deadline for approval?
I have to go back and see what the PDC deadline was based on. I don't think it was based on the federal funding deadline.
Okay. All right.
So I'll check on that.
Okay. You want me to? Oh, well, I'm sure you have this certificate. Okay.
Yeah, we have that. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, if you want to continue.
Sure, of course. So I have 2 slides on Pier 42. One is just a graphic, so I'll do this one first. So in November, we updated both Community Board 3 at this committee, as well as members of the public at a separate meeting. Thanks to Gouverneur Gardens and Vladik for co-hosting and helping drive attendance for that, on the construction status and essentially construction start of work at Pier 42. So as folks might recall, in partnership with the Parks Department as well as DDC, EDC is constructing the Upland Park, which is the section on land in the park you can see here in this rendering. And then we are also doing temporary or interim deck improvements on the deck to replace the temporary loss of open space due to the ESCR project. So this is sort of multiple projects rolled into one. We did the construction update in November, but we're really just now getting started on what folks are going to see on site. Before I actually go through these details, I do want to highlight a couple things here at the end, which I think will be helpful. So first, just today we have the new webpage up, which I'm going to send also to Michael here in a minute, and make sure that everybody has that so that folks are able to access the webpage, which has an archive of presentations we've given on Pier 42, and also my contact information. More importantly, we're also bringing on, we should have onboarded by next week, a member of the team at Melissa Johnson Associates, which is also going to be doing community construction liaison services for ESCR package, or excuse me, project area 1. So in working on this, we really wanted to make sure that the person we hired to do the community construction liaison work for Pier 42 was also familiar with ESCR, because the 2 projects are right next to each other. So we do want to make sure that that team who's going to be on the ground in the field answering questions is able to speak to the content of both projects, but they are going to be employed by, or contracted by EDC. So we should have the community construction liaison on next week, and I am planning to reach out to make some introductions and then hopefully have a small meeting with that person and elected officials in the community board in the coming weeks. For now, of course, folks can direct questions to me, but we should have that person on soon. So back up to the top here to give folks a little bit of update on the progress so far. We've just put up the construction fencing, and there's a small detour within the park that I'm going to show you on the next slide, just so folks are aware. The excavation for the first scope item, which is the seawall rehabilitation. Now, I want to make sure we don't confuse this with the berm that ESCR is constructing. This is more or less the bulkhead along the water, but we're doing some work at the shore, for which excavation is going to start this coming January the 18th on Monday. We don't expect that that's going to be very noisy. All that work is going to take place during the day. It's going to be on the far side of the Pier 42 site. I'll indicate that on the next slide. The 4 sort of general scope items that we have with this project are the rehabilitation of the seawall bulkhead, rehabilitation of sewers. And this includes some work that we are doing on behalf of the ESCR team. So sewers that run through the Pier site and then that cross the FDR over to the other side of South Street. And then following completion of the sewer work, we obviously want to get things done below ground before we start putting things on top. We're going to be doing the deck improvements, which we've spoken about before. That'll be complete by summer 2022. And then the upland part, which is going to be complete by summer 2023. And of course, the deck improvements, we're trying to get those open as soon as possible. So, we're probably going to be generally constructing sort of safe passageways to get through what is going to be, still in construction on the upland park to get to the deck improvements. But we do want to make sure that we activate that as soon as possible, since that was identified as some space that could be used as interim recreation space while DDC is in construction on ESCR. So I can come back to this in just a second, but I just wanted to show you the next slide. This is a detail, a little bit of a zoom in of what the site is going to look like. So the red dot dashed line that you see here, this is our fencing extent. So this is the area that's going to be fenced for at least the first year of construction. The small detour I wanted to point out to folks is that to access the Corlears Hook Ferry, folks coming from the south, from Montgomery Street, might ordinarily, there's a walkway here that goes along the edge. Due to site safety and a few other constraints, we've had to modify the fence line to actually go along the water here. We have some work here happening right on the shore. So we are going to need to restrict that from public access. So folks who are approaching the Corlears Hook Ferry or otherwise going to East River Park can go on the bike and pedestrian path as normal and then loop around to the side here. We do have signage already posted out in the area for folks who would be taking the ferry. So the detour signs are already posted for anybody who's looking for the ferry at that site. Other than that, the fence is up. Like I mentioned, the excavation associated with the seawall work is going to begin early next week. And then, as far as ongoing, communications, obviously happy to keep the community board updated in this sense, but we're also going to be with Melissa Johnson Associates, bringing someone on board to do community construction liaison work for us. We're also going to be looking for that person to do a weekly or bi-weekly construction bulletin for folks who live in the area, because we would like to keep folks updated on a more regular basis. So that'll be on a sort of opt-in basis, and we'll build a mailing list and make sure that folks know what's going on in the site and who they should contact if they have any questions. And that's that.
All right, thank you, Will, for that thorough update. Just a couple of questions, and if community members have questions, can you raise your hand? Just regarding the excavation starting at 118, I know that's a day when construction starts, and I'm still looking for a ceremonial date as to when we can do this. I know that Parks has had other groundbreakings, and a couple of them included the mayor. Not that we're asking the mayor to come down here, but they are doing these sort of groundbreakings. And Pier 42 was given that we had to advocate for to turn park for decades. So I think it's incredibly important that we do something symbolic soon to mark this opening for a community to gain new parkland. It's very rare, especially in our district where land is very valuable. So I think that's important. You mentioned the ferry. There's signs up for the ferry with that detour. I just want to verify that that's if you're coming from the south, there are signs that tell people how to get to the ferry.
That's correct.
And
yeah, there's essentially no detour for anybody who's coming from the north.
This whole
pedestrian bridge.
Right. The whole process of these liaisons that we're doing for ESCR and now Pier 42. I just want to make sure we continue that southerly for the BMCR project, which is going to be massive. To start thinking about how we do that now so that we don't run into a situation where it doesn't happen. So if we could get that to place and connect all these projects, it'd be extremely helpful. After these projects are done, almost every inch of the waterfront will be either parks or managed by parks. So I think parks needs to maintaining this is going to be incredibly challenging for parks, especially in the new environment. But even before COVID, I think the addition of new parkland to maintain, we're going to have to be very creative about how we can get revenue to make sure this area, and it's complicated, very complicated area to maintain. But I see there are questions from Val, so I'm going to have Val raise it. Val, please answer your question or comment.
Just come back to me. Come back to me. Okay, you know what? I have to apologize. I got my tooth done today. In terms of presentations, you acknowledge that this one with Gouverneur Gardens, Valadics, I think it's very important that you do that kind of public presentation where this is the topic. The last thing that I went to, I tried not to say much of anything because I noticed that there were a lot more people from various developments that very often don't say come to community board meetings. And, you know, we've had people like complain that it took so long because like right now it's 9:30. And I know that one of the other things that I think is important is to have things in a variety of languages, because I noticed that when we had the presentation at Lands End 2, there was quite a few frail, elderly, Asian American people that came down and got interpretation. And I think that that's really, really important that you do that. And I think the other thing is when you do the presentation, I remember that whoever did the presentation, I had to like stop them and say, right now, I think we're talking about across the street from right here. And that was one of the comments about the other thing in terms of the sign and the education, that you state where it is. And when you're, and I think that some of these slides can be very difficult sometimes when people have not been participating, or you're talking about frail elderly people, is to kind of like stop and tell people when you're dealing with their particular community or where you are across the street. Right now we're at, we're next to Smith, or right now we're next to Lands End 2. Because both of these people got those HESCO barriers, which means that anybody can Google and know what that means. So I would say multiple languages for material that's sent out, and multiple languages for presentations, and some other town halls for the community, and encourage people from the community to speak up at that time. I have a voice right here, but it's important for the other people in the community to have a voice. Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you did come out to the community and people did come out. And I understand we're in this Zoom world now, this pandemic world, and I don't think we're leaving it for quite some time. Thank you.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, thank you, Val. That's really good feedback. And I think, there's obviously a variety of methods and settings in which we can get the word out. And I think, trying to get this information to as many folks as possible. To Trevor's point from earlier regarding the groundbreaking, we're building a new park here from what was a parking lot and warehouse. So, this is fantastic. And the community's been asking for this for a long time. So we should make sure that folks know about it. So thank you for that. And yeah, we'll continue to work on trying to get the information to folks who need it and want it.
And let me just say, if you're doing a groundbreaking, please do something also on Zoom, because a lot of elderly people don't want to go to a lot of things, and a lot of people with various conditions don't want to come out and try their best to stay home and get food delivered. And there's a lot of senior delivery food things because people don't want to leave their apartment. Thank you.
That's exactly what we're trying to balance. It's a hard time to do this kind of thing.
Well, I'm also going to give you credit. It's for the BMCR meeting. You did have simultaneous translations in languages, and that was the first one I had been to where that was offered. So I know as I work with the team, we do outreach to the buildings along the waterfront, and we did have a good turnout with simultaneous translation, which is quite amazing to be honest.
Thank you.
Any other committee?
And I think there were some glitches during, but one thing I'm really especially happy about is that we have the recordings in each language. So those recordings are going to be available online within the next couple of weeks.
Did you address those glitches? Because people talked about that after. But anyway,
it's
okay.
We're and I did get an email from Frank on behalf of the East River Residents Committee, which I haven't responded yet. But it was certainly challenging. It was nearly all of our first time using that, and honestly, we still haven't figured out how to deal with some of the issues. But at the very least, it was never more than a minute or two of pause, and we'll have the recording, all that dead time cut out.
Okay, but you're addressing it. That's what's important to take back to people. Yeah. You know, you understand, you heard, and you're addressing those glitches because they talked about that. All right, thank you.
Any other community board members have any questions? So I see two handsome folks who are in the community who'd like to ask questions. So Michael, if you want to make a statement. Michael, if you want to start the clock.
Will, you have to stop sharing.
Oh, okay.
All right, I think Wendy was first.
Thank you. As you probably know, I've put forth a proposed resolution regarding Pier 42 so that there's a clear view of the water. There's an open walkway from Pier 42 to 36 that would require taking about 15 feet of the public space currently used by DOT to allow people to have a walkway along the water that's a third of a mile long. And if you add Pier 35 and the edge to it, you've got a half a mile. That's very nice for people who like to walk and run. But no, right now, this is not part of the plan. We just heard tonight that change orders are possible. We heard that from Desiree and Melissa. I've put it forth many different ways already to this committee. And so the question is both to CB3 and to Will, where does health come into this? Why is there no shade? Why is there no sanitary facility of any kind, even a porta potty? Where is, Val mentioned the frail seniors. That's who's out there right now on Pier 36. I was there yesterday with people from Gal's office and Carlina's office. It was locked again. But that's now. I'm really concerned about the long-term health of this community, especially when everything along that waterfront is closed, except for this area. Why can't we have it be a little more conducive to people who do not play tennis or basketball, but who are normally out in that park enjoying the sunshine and view? What is wrong with that?
Thank you, Wendy. Let me address your comment first to the community board because that's really directed at me. We get lots of requests from different people about different plans, ESCR, BMCR, parks. Just because you submit a resolution doesn't mean that it's going to be written. I know you wrote one for the tree canopy, very nicely adjusted it, but we take everything that people say the entire community and we evaluate it. I think what you're forgetting, Wendy, is that this park, we've been talking about this park for decades. Primarily I know you just recently got involved, but there have been plans and designs that we've worked with for many years of a lot of community involvement. I know you're shaking your head, but that's the way the community has been. And I'm going to mute you because I gave you a chance to speak. Your resolution is fine. You've sent it to me, but that would have to go. It would go against some of our present resolutions, which have been in effect for 20 years, and some of them 10 years. So we'll take a look at it and we'll continue. And if Will, you want to address anything else, you can address what her other comment about Pier 36 and the connected walkway.
Sure, yeah, and I think I definitely acknowledge that Pier 36 is an ongoing challenge. We, again, did install an additional gate there at the community's request, but at the same time as having done that, the vastly decreased ability to, you know, you heard what Parks had to say about, you know, operating staff and what revenues are available to operate things. There's some challenges there. I think, Wendy, as well, I definitely see the point about sort of making this a cohesive and sort of all stitched together quilt of waterfront open space. It makes a lot of sense. But not speaking for DOT, because I don't know if they're here, but I would just say that in general, agencies with a lot of operations are generally very constrained for space. So I think, you know, repurposing a lot that they use for, I'm sure, a lot of really important things is a challenge, because, you know, as we see with a lot of other, as we've heard here tonight, you know, relocation of services elsewhere, real estate is hard to find. I think definitely acknowledge I did receive your comments and resolution regarding Pier 42, but I think, you know, in addition to what Trevor said, I think we have federal spending deadlines associated with the LMDC funds that were provided for Pier 42. Design revisions take a long time. We try to go through a inclusive community process, you know, a year or two of additional design work, redesigning something, potentially additional costs. As you may know, the pier deck right now is being activated on a temporary basis. So this does not preclude the sort of long-term master plan vision that the city and the community put together. Doesn't preclude that from being implemented on the pier deck itself. But what we are doing is, you know, actively starting shovels around soon to build a new park on what was once a parking lot. And, you know, that's a very big improvement. So I do just want to make sure, you know, we acknowledge that there is a lot of progress in the space. There can always be more, but we're doing the best we can right now with the resources that we have.
And I'm also going to I mean, I know we're struggling for resources here, but there is going to be need for bathroom and shade at that particular site. We've discussed that before. We've written it in several of our resolutions about bathrooms along the waterfront as a whole, but we really need to focus on that and figure out a way to get some bathrooms on the future, because there's none. I know Pier 42 will eventually have one, but 5-6 years from now, but right now there is nothing. I see Diane has her hand up.
Hi, Will. I wanted to talk about the detour area. I noticed that you guys have put a gate just south of the ferry along the Esplanade, and there's another gate where that little, you know, connecting road goes into the shared path. So I have a question for you and a question or a comment for the community board. Will those gates be open? Will those gates be closed 24/7 during the construction period, or will they be able to be, say, like opened to the public on the weekends or something like that? You know, then when they are closed, particularly at night, the area behind, you know, on the shared path is quite dark right now because there are a couple of lights out. The two southernmost you know, street lights over there are out. And there's quite a lot of traffic through there in the evenings. I know that you guys have a lot of signage up for the ferry, but there are a lot of pedestrians. A lot of people are running, walking their dogs, commuting home from work. There are people on bicycles. So I'm wondering what the possibilities are. I know that Jamil has his hands full right now, but of getting those lights fixed so that the area directly behind the parking lot where HNTB has their trailer is better lit and safer, because there was an incident a few years ago where a woman was raped in the area. And I'd like to, you know, just make sure that we have good lighting back there, especially if that Esplanade area and the detour are going to be in effect 24/7.
Understood. Really, Michael, would you mind if I share my screen again, just for the purposes of putting up the graphic?
Go ahead.
Okay. Great. So yeah, so I just want to zoom in so everybody, the detour area. So yeah, so Diane, great question. Always want to make sure that we're keeping site safety in mind. So essentially, I do want to point out here, the area that we really need to keep safe and secure, and we unfortunately will need to keep the public from 24/7 during construction. So that answers one of the questions, because of the bulkhead and sewer work that's going all through this area. It would allow a little more of this esplanade to be open, but that creates an unsafe situation for pedestrians. We don't want there to be a dead end, especially like you said with where the lighting is poor right now. So that's why we elected to have the site fence go just next to the ferry. This would create sort of a dead end where you would need additional lighting, and there could be sort of a a kind of one direction out surrounded by fences, and we wouldn't want to create that in the park in the evening. So what we have right here is the perimeters here. Like you said, there are the two gates, one on the bike ped path, I think it's here, the other one by the ferry, and yes, they will both need to be closed during construction 24/7 because again, the first two packages of work that we're doing is restoration of this bulkhead and seawall here. That's kind of structural work that's going to require the excavation I mentioned. And then the sewer work, which runs through this area. And we're doing that on behalf of ESCR. So the sewer work and the bulkhead work go in the upland area. And then we'll, once those scope items are complete, we'll do the improvements on the deck and the improvements on the upland part.
Yeah,
just for clarity.
Yeah, I
Just
was
for
just going to say, to clarify, the lighting that I'm talking about is not out at the water. It's back along the FDR.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine.
Great. Thank you, Diane. I'll take a note of that. I'm not sure. I'll see if there's something we can do from our side, from within the construction perimeter, or we can try to coordinate with Park. But regardless, I'll pass that along to the team who's more familiar with this than I am.
To her point, it's an opportunity to provide some lighting for the entire area. I haven't been around that corner, but since they are putting up construction fencing and we are worried about safety, the entire area, including the detour area, should be well lit, so that people can, especially exit from the ferry, going to the ferry, can be safe. And it's usually part of a construction package anyway. But go ahead.
We happen to, I believe that there's a significant amount of, actually, well, I don't want to misspeak, but I do want to go back and look back at the lighting scope for the Pier 42 park, but I'm not sure how far that extends to the north. I can check on that as well.
Okay. And just a note before I get to Kay, and then Frank's probably going to clear it up about lighting. I can see it now. Right now on the east side, and I know a lot of this predates you, we have that New York City DOT maintenance yard and Pier 36, and we have a garbage station right behind where I live. So it's not just the walkway we're talking, it's going to take a lot of advocacy to remove those public utilities from this particular area. So just keep that in mind. It's a lot of infrastructure in one particular area that we're really trying to recapture. Okay.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I thought DOT did lights on Parkland, but anyway, Will, back to the pathway there. Where are trucks entering and leaving? I was just down there and there was a lot of traffic going with people walking. Just curious about the safety issue on that pathway.
For our project, the trucks are most likely going to be entering the site near the foot of Montgomery Street by Basketball City.
Could you put the cursor there? Just
yeah, sure. Over here towards this side.
Okay, and so they'll be coming right in there, so there won't be any trucks or traffic along that pathway.
So I know that they're going to do this where possible. If there is some sort of site logistics situation where, say, they have an open trench for sewer that blocks the way in, they may need to do that. We're going to be we are going to have flaggers and stuff on site for that. But I will take that as something that is of concern and pass that along. Like I mentioned, we'll have the community construction liaison on board next week, who's going to be directly interfacing with the contractors. And I can pass that along. Okay,
thank you. And I just want to say to the committee that I would be interested in, I did receive Wendy's proposal. I would be interested in looking at it just because she has spent a lot of time there, and it may not be doable. But I think when somebody in the community goes to that much trouble, it would be, you know, you probably have, Trevor, but I know I haven't.
I got about 57 of them if you want to go through all of them. They just don't usually send it to everybody. They send it to me, but I can send you all 57. They range from Cherry Clinton Park to
okay. I will send those to Wendy. Okay. The other thing is I do want to make a note of Will saying that design revisions take a long time and may incur additional costs. I'd like us to bookmark that remark for the mapping of the compost situation. But last, just on a personal note, I meant to say this earlier, I would just like to thank Carolyn for her service on this committee. She has been a font of information about a whole range of things that have been really important to me, and that's somebody who cares deeply about, of all the darn things, the subterranean water system in parts of this community. So I did want to just say that. Thank you.
Okay, and 9:51. Again, Frank.
Thank you again, Trevor. No, I'll just be very quick, and I think Trevor was already aware of my raised hand. It's about the lighting. I think health and safety are tantamount. I just want to reiterate just a sensitivity level for those of us in the waterfront. The Pier 36 lighting that surrounds it is pretty bright, but there is of course I can't use your mouse, but about midway through is the first instance where you're going to have a street lamp. There are a bunch of other ones that are, I guess, not working. I'm not really sure. And so there are gaps, but I just want to point out the sensitivity of lighting for folks who live along the waterfront. So thank you.
I can hear you, and I was really talking about those street lamps that are out. The ones that were underneath the FDR that are near Montgomery took years to get fixed because of the jurisdictional issues of DOT, EDC, parks. So I'm hoping that we can use this construction as an opportunity to fix those street lamps. Quickly.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. Thank you, Trevor, for bringing that, because I know that was brought up by several people before, because it is a dangerous area under there, or at least proclivities to be being so dark. Thank you.
Val, you have a question, and we're going to end it on Val. So Val, you get to ask the last question.
No, I don't have a question. I think one of the things to look at, Will, is I think our partnership, we brought up the issue of the lighting under there, and the issue became the jurisdiction of who owns that property under there. And you know, that's what the issue became. So I think you can follow up in terms of who owns that property, because you'd be surprised who owns the property. But that was the issue, who owns the property.
Thanks. Thank you, Will, for staying and giving us this presentation on these projects that extend from Montgomery Street to the Brooklyn Bridge. As I said before, if you come back, we're going to put you first. We're now at 10 o'clock, or nearly 10 o'clock, so we're going to end this meeting. Thanks everyone for participating. For those folks who are on the committee, we need to take attendance for our last vote, which is a vote to adjourn. Ryan, if you want to do a roll call, well, we technically need a motion, so does someone want a motion to end?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
I second.
Second. And Ryan, can you take attendance, please?
Ryan, you're muted.
I know, I unmute myself and then something happened. Trevor Holland,
Yes, I think.
Kay Webster,
Yes, and thank you, Trevor.
David Adams,
Yes. Good night.
Ron Altman,
Yes, good night. Thank you.
Carlin Chan,
Yes, good night.
Ryan Gillum, yes, good night. Valentina Jones,
Yes, good night.
Michael Marino,
Peace out.
Robin Chattel, Josephine Velez,
Peace out. Good night, everybody.
Troy Velez.
Yes.
We're good.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good. So I'll say good night, everyone. See you on Valentine's.
Not everyone. We'll see what happens next week, but good night.